Chapter 51. The students came forward one after another. After Richard got the number, he glanced at it and put it in his pocket. In the order of the plot, Hisoka will be the first. However, because there was a problem with the route arranged by the former examiner, the first one became Gitaraker. And Richard became the second. Hisoka third. Then there are Hanzo, Bakura, Pengsi. The number above is the target you want to hunt. Wait, you will all go to this island. On this small island, you will have a week-long competition to win the target's number plate, and you will get 3 points. At the same time, your number card is worth 3 points. Another unrelated number plate is worth 1 point. Only when your points reach 6, or more, can you be considered the winner of this level. The means of capture are not limited, and the methods are not limited. Even if you kill them, no one will care. The rules of the fourth test were exactly the same as Richard remembered. Perhaps the only difference is the addition of Richard. My goal. Richard looked at a figure. Hanzo. Peng Si, who is your target? It's a burst library. Richard raised his brows and said, then after we get to the island, we'll follow Bakura first, get his number card, and then go to my target. Are the bees ready? Pens nodded. All right. Peng Si's ability is very useful in this environment. No one will specifically notice a bee. And in such an environment, it is normal for bees to appear. This means that as long as Peng Si is willing, the entire island can be under Peng Si's monitoring. Everyone, get on board. Candidates get on board one by one. A staff member briefly introduced the situation on the island. But not detailed. Not many people listened. At the beginning of the lottery, everyone had already simulated the battle scene after going to the island in their minds. For confident candidates, the first day will be the most suitable time to start. For candidates who are not so confident, they will adopt a more stable strategy. Hide first and observe the situation of other candidates. After that, when the opponent was in a bad state, he suddenly launched an attack. Richard chose the former. After all, among the candidates here, apart from Hisoka and Ilmi, Richard has no confidence in dealing with them. Other candidates will not be Richard's opponents. And Hisoka and Richard already had an agreement. The two won't fight until Hisoka gets the Dark Sonata. Ilmi, unless Richard does something to Killua, Ilmi won't do anything superfluous. Richard remembered that in the original book, Ilmi got his target number plate soon after he went to the island. After that, he found a place, dug a pit, and buried himself in the pit. Wait until the end of the assessment time before coming out of the pit. Island, here we come. The boat stopped. Everyone. Wish you guys good luck. Richard and Pence both walked into the woods. A famous candidate disappeared one after another. Leorio chose a direction that was neither Richard nor Hisoka. Most people did not notice the number plates of other candidates, and when the examiner proposed to draw lots, the candidates had already hidden their number plates one after another. Richard remembered it because he knew the content of the assessment in advance. To Peng Si, 2 reminders. Without this news, Richard would still pass smoothly. But in the end it's going to be a bit of a hassle. A bee flew in front of Pensy and landed on Pensy's fingertips. Found it? Yes. Peng Si said, Bakura is in this direction, and it is still moving forward. Then let's follow. The two followed the bee's lead. Soon, a figure appeared in the sight of the two of them. Who? The Kugu turned back suddenly. A bow and arrow pointed in the direction of Richard and Pence. Richard? Pence? You came to my alliance? Bakura asked subconsciously, and suddenly felt that something was wrong, and a bad premonition was born in his heart. Isn't it? Your target is me. Pence's target number card is yours. Richard said, so, Baku, now we give you 2 choices. The first one is to give us the number card. In this way, you can save your stamina to get your target number card, and then grab 3 ordinary number cards. Second, choose to resist. Bakura's eyes flickered. Does it have to be like this? That's the rules of this assessment, isn't it? Bakura carefully analyzed the current situation. With 1 enemy and 2, the explosion of the library is definitely a disadvantage. However, Bakura has never seen Richard's real shot. From the information he learned from Bakura will not think that Richard's strength is much stronger than his. And Peng Si's strength is weaker than Kuer. Handing over the number plate directly, Kuer was not reconciled. I choose the second one. Without waiting for the voice to fall, Bakuer turned around abruptly. This place is not suitable for bursting library children to play. Richard chased after him. Pengsi, you follow behind a little bit, and use bees at any time to pass on the information of cure. Yes. Pengsi nodded heavily. A chase battle has officially begun. But soon, it will end. Because there is no road ahead, it is a huge mountain wall. Asterisk. Chapter 52. Richard, I will resist. Bakuer raised his bow and arrow. Even if he knew that he would be the most likely to lose, Cure was still not reconciled, so he just conceded defeat. Come on then. Richard rushed towards Bakuer. But the speed is average. Obtaining a number plate is one aspect. Another aspect is that Richard wants to fight Bakuer once. An opponent that uses bows and arrows like this, Richard has never encountered before. Richard did not use Nen, but simply, relying on the strength of their own body. Call out. Bakuer loosened the bowstring in his hand. A feather arrow shot straight at Richard. Not fast enough. Richard shook his head, moved his body slightly, and avoided the arrow from Bakuer. Is really not fast enough. Not as good as Hisoka's cards. You escaped so easily. Bakugu's eyes widened. Richard's strength is stronger than I expected. Explosive Cure gritted his teeth. 2 bursts. The 2 feather arrows were blasted and placed on the bowstring. Shoots 2 feather arrows at the same time. Dodge difficulty, multiplied. It's still slow. 2 feather arrows do create more possibilities, but the speed is slower than a single feather arrow. On the whole, it is more difficult than the blow just now. It's not too big. Richard drilled through the gap between the 2 feather arrows. Buraku's face sank. 3 bursts. This time, 3 feather arrows were fired at the same time. I don't believe that you can dodge this blow. But soon, Bakuer's eyes widened. Because Richard not only escaped, and also caught one of the arrows grab it. How can that be? Richard threw the feather arrow in the direction of the explosion. The distance between the two was less than 3 meters. This distance, bow and arrow, is already a burden. Bakuer took off the bow and arrow and took a fighting posture with a solemn expression. I'm not only good at bows and arrows. Fighting, I'm also good at it. Richard smiled and said, Bakuer, I have a suggestion for you. What advice? At any time, don't say good at 2 words. Richard said, because it's a luxury to be good at these 2 words. When you think you are good at something, you have less room to improve in this area. Step forward. Boom. The 2 fists collided. Bakuer immediately felt that a powerful force bounced back from his arm. This power. Richard's strength, among the Nen, is not outstanding. Richard is a trait type after all. Instead of enhancer. For enhancer training, only 40% of the effect. But last time, after absorbing the black aura from the monster, Richard's physical strength had risen to a pretty good level. In the brigade, you can line up on the middle. Apart from Yuvajin and Finks, Hisoka, Franklin, Richard, and others, quite. The defensive ability is comparable to Yuvajin. Bakuer's face became very solemn. Richard's offensive, wave after wave. There is indeed a big gap in strength between the two. Bakuer himself said that he is good at fighting. But in reality, it's simply unsightly. This level is really not good at it. Richard easily dodged Bakuer's attack, turned around, and came behind Bakuer. A hand was placed on the shoulders of Bakuchuer. This time, I could have landed on your neck. In that case, you are already dead. Bakugo gave a wry smile. I lost. This is my number plate. Bakuer lowered his head and surrendered his number plate resignedly. Richard took it, glanced at it, and threw it to Pence. Good luck, we're leaving first. If you are lucky enough, maybe you can collect 6 points. After all, there is still a full week. Bakugo gave a wry smile. Hopefully. Watching Richard and Peng Si disappear from their backs, Bakuer clenched his fists. But soon loosened. It's really me, I'm not as good as others. Maybe, I haven't gotten to the point where I can pass the hunter exam. Richard glanced back. I lost my number plate, and I was injured a little bit during the battle with myself just now. The injury was still on my arm, which will definitely have a lot of impact on Bakuer's use of bows and arrows. Under such circumstances, it was very difficult for Bakuer to pass this assessment. However, this may still be a good thing for Bakuer. Without becoming a hunter, Bakuer wouldn't have investigated NGL. If you don't investigate NGLs, you won't encounter Chimera Ants. And still, when the strength is so low, even the division commander and guard in a mere ant could not beat him. Because of accepting this task, the entire team was killed. Compared with the Gon and Killua of the same period, it is much worse. Compared with Hanzo, Kurapika is also inferior. Only Leorio will be weaker than Bakuer in terms of strength. However, Leorio did not practice because he went to a course about doctors. When Leorio learns Nin, it will be no worse than Bakuer. Pengsi, let the bees take us to where Hanzo is. It is good. AB leads the way. The reason why Richard values Peng Si is because of this ability. In terms of strength, Peng Si is not as good as Cure. However, Peng Si's position is not a fighter, and she doesn't need such strong strength. Peng Si's ability to obtain information is extremely strong, and it is useful even for Nin. Asterisk. Chapter 53. And at this time, Ilmi found her purpose. A needle is thrown. Pfft. Immediately, the person is dead. Ilmi took out the number plate, chose a hidden place, dug a pit, and buried himself in the pit. Killua met 3 brothers. Gon, like the original, targets Hisoka. The rest, slightly altered and messed up. The appearance of Richard still caused some butterfly effects. Buzz. Hanzo felt annoyed when he heard the sound of the bee, and waved his hand to drive the bee away. Sudden. A subtle feeling arises. Hanzo frowned. Inexplicable, a little flustered. Is someone following me? Richard's figure came out of the woods. Richard. Hanzo's expression became serious. In terms of strength, Hanzo can be ranked in the top 4 among this batch of candidates. Second only to Hisoka, Ilmi, Richard. Even above Killua, who has been trained as a killer since childhood. Because, Hanzo's ninja training has been carried out since childhood. Moreover, Hanzo is much older than Killua, and he is also a genius. Hanzo had deliberately observed Richard. Richard had shown nothing before the previous exam. However, Hanzo noticed the subtle interaction between Richard and Hisoka. Hanzo instinctively felt that Richard was not afraid of Hisoka. Knowing that Hisoka is so terrifying, he is still not afraid of Hisoka. Either, he can't tell whether Hisoka is strong or not, or his own strength is strong enough. Hanzo wouldn't think Richard was the former. A person who can communicate with Hisoka in a peer-to-peer manner will only be in existence of the same level as Hisoka. Is your target? Yes. I won't give it to you easily. If you want it, beat me and get it yourself. Hanzo is ready for battle. Richard took a look. Compared to Bakuer, Hanzo is much stronger. With just one gesture, Richard could see that the strength of Hanzo was completely different from that of Bakuer. The level of the 200th floor of the Sky Arena. Because it won't be Nin, it won't be Seidaso's opponent. But as long as you learn Nin, even if it's just entanglement, you will be better than Seidaso and the others. Richard remembers. When Killua threatened Seidaso, he just learned to entangle. Coupled with Killua's own, killer breath. Let Seidaso go straight away. Not even the Sky Arena. Peng Si, look around and let me know if there is any situation. Yes. Hanzo glanced at Peng Si and looked away. Richard, if someone else comes over, it's better for us to stop immediately. I don't want to let others take advantage of it because of the fight between the two of us. Can. Then let's begin. In an instant, Richard moved. Still not using Nin. Bang. 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 A series of fighting sounds rang out. The speed of the two was very fast. Fist bump. Block. One hit is not heavy, another hit immediately. Block successfully, immediately return a blow. Pensi's eyes widened. Because Peng Si found that she couldn't see Richard and Hanzo's movements clearly. Too fast. From the very beginning, Pensi made a judgment on Glia's team. Both Glia and Sancho, Pensi felt that they had little hope of passing the hunter exam. As for Richard, Pence is a little bit opaque. But Pence didn't think that Richard was much better than her. Available as the exam progresses. Pence realized that Richard was stronger than her, not a little bit. Therefore, Peng Si clearly identified her position. Intelligence tool man. But at this moment, seeing Richard and Hanzo fighting, Pence was still taken aback. I'm still a long way off. After dozens of rounds, the two are on par. However, neither of them showed their true abilities. Richard, I'm serious. Random. The next moment, a fierce aura erupted from Hanzo's body. Hanzo is a ninja. Is a practitioner. Not just physical training, but also spiritual training. Even without nin turned on. But Hanzo already has some of the qualities of a nin. But Richard is a real nerd. Hanzo gets stronger, Richard will only get stronger than Hanzo. The battlefield between the two kept shifting. From clearing to woods, and from woods to clearings. Hanzo stared at Richard, and there was a feeling that Richard had not shown his true skills yet, as if no matter how much he improved, Richard could always be better than him. Not much, just right on the line. This is not something that someone stronger than himself can do. But to be much stronger. Hanzo refused to admit defeat. At the same age, even Richard may be younger than him. However, Hanzo is more rational than Bakuer. Now is not the time to admit defeat and compete with Richard. I surrender. Hanzo stopped and stepped back. Number plate, I'll give it to you. Hanzo threw the number plate to Richard and said, however, I want to ask a question. What? I can feel that you are hiding something terrifying, like an extremely dangerous beast, hiding in your body. Can you tell me, what is this? Richard shook his head. No, but you'll find out soon enough. Hanzo was silent for a while. I have a request. I would like to compete with you again after the Hunter exam. Asterisk. Chapter 54. What about the conditions? Condition. Yes, you want to compete with me, not I want to compete with you. In fact, I don't want to. I don't really want to fight this kind of meaningless battle. What can you give me? Richard paused and said, I made an agreement with Hisoka that there will be a ring battle in the Sky Arena, and Hisoka needs to help me find something. Is that so? Hanzo fell silent. I know, I'll think about it first. It is good. Richard waved his hand and said, see you in the final. Unlike Bakuer, Richard recognizes Hanzo's strength. Hanzo's current strength and potential are not comparable to Bakuer. If Hanzo's nin is developed better, then Hanzo can become an elite level nin. Richard's predictions for Hanzo's future are at least sea level. And now, even if Hanzo's number plate was taken away from Richard, Richard still believes that Hanzo can break through. Richard, where are we going now? Find a suitable place, and stay here for 7 days. We have to solve the problem of housing and food. Peng Si, let your bees find out if there is a cave near the sea. Yes. Not long after, the bees returned. I found one, but they can't tell if it's suitable or not. Then let's go and see for ourselves. As Richard walked, he recalled the fight with Hanzo just now. To be honest, in terms of combat skills, Richard is a little worse than Hanzo. After all, Hanzo has been training since he was a child, and Richard's real training time is only after awakening his memory. But Richard's strengths are physique, strength, and speed. These aspects are enough to make up for the lack of skills. And the actual combat experience, Richard has more than Hanzo. Richard's training came from one battle after another, while Hanzo, on the other hand, might have less practice in this area, especially the battle of life and death. Of course, if Richard uses nin, Hanzo is not the enemy of Richard's one. Richard, here we are. Richard glanced. A cave, leaning against a mountain wall. Towards the forest. Not facing the sea breeze, it is still dry. Pack up some firewood, smoke the cave to prevent poisonous insects, and go to the sea to catch some food. Which one do you choose? Peng Si. Pensy hesitated. I choose the first one. It is good. Richard walked to the sea not far away. As Richard thought about it, a recorder appeared in Richard's hand. Richard looked into the sea. Many marine creatures swim in the water. Fish, crab, shrimp. Very fat. It may be related to the sparse population here, and the creatures here have not been fished. This reminded Richard. In my previous life, it was actually quite difficult to eat such high-quality seafood. Not without. But cost money. Quite expensive. But in this world, Richard is not very short of money, but he is facing other problems. As soon as he regained his memory, he was immediately chased by the gang. Then came Cameron's attack. As for Sadasso, it's only a small problem. If Richard is not sure of his own strength, Richard would be better off joining Sadasso's big cable association. It can only be said that Sadasso was unlucky and met Richard. So much so that he lost his life. Use Korjin, strengthen the tongue. Richard has his eye on a crab. After that, align the recorder. Pfft. With one click, the strengthened tongue entered the water and rolled up the crab. Richard uses a puff of air and wraps the crab in it. This is not Conjurer's ability, because Richard simply changed the shape of the chi, but did not change the nature of the chi. The crab was not bound in essence, just feared. 2, 3. Richard stopped. Take the caught seafood and head towards the cave. This fortified tongue is also very useful. But if it's true, it's pretty disgusting. It is now the state of death thought, which is essentially a mass of air, so Richard can accept it. After a while, Richard lit the fire. After cleaning these seafood, I took the simplest way of grilling. Only this, Richard is still able to. Sudden. Richard remembered something. A way that can be used to exercise chi. That is, put your own chi into the food, and use your own chi to bake the food. It can exercise the ability to control chi. It's a similar strategy that Professor Biscuit gave Gon, Killua, to control the shape of the chi and change it into numbers. Both focus on different controls. So Richard took out an extra crab. Put the crab in your hands. After practice, Richard covered his chi on his hands and slowly spread it until the chi range encompassed the entire crab. Right away, Richard felt it. The meat inside the crab is going bad. Not bad. But qualitative change, that is, the process of ripening. However, soon there was a burning smell. Richard shook his head and tossed the crab aside. The first training session failed. But Richard was not disappointed. The first failure is normal. On the contrary, this proves that Richard's idea is correct, and it is indeed possible to train the ability to control chi. Richard, the grilled fish seems ready. Let me see. Richard puts down the exercise in his hands. It's really good, let's eat. It is good. In the bushes in the distance, a pair of eyes looked towards this side and swallowed hard. The same students. Also on this island. Why the treatment is completely different. Asterisk. Chapter 55. An old man looked at Richard and Peng Si, a tangle flashed in his eyes. The old man naturally analyzed the previous exams. Among the many candidates, there are only a few who are worthy of fear. Hisoka, Gitaraker, Richard, Hanzo. These are all well-recognized and powerful beings. I didn't expect my target to be Richard. But now, the goal is in front of me, and I'm still so unprepared. If I let it go, I'll be too timid. When the old man thought about it, some poisonous snakes crawled out from the old man's side. Following the control of the old man, he slowly crawled in the direction of Richard. Just one bite. With the venom of my venomous snake, it can definitely have a great impact on them. No matter how strong they are, it will not be said that they can be immune to the poison of venomous snakes. Right now their eating and their defenses are the weakest. And my figure is not revealed. This is my best chance. The old man stared at Richard and Pence. But what the old man didn't know was that Richard, as early as the beginning, had sensed the existence of the old man. Did you still choose to shoot at us? Using these venomous snakes, that is, trying to take our lives. Richard looked at Pence. Pensy, how about handing over this battle to you? It is good. Pensy nodded. Richard remembers. In the original book, Peng Si's opponent was this old man, and the battle between the two ended in Peng Si's victory. Peng Si used to be to kill the old man, but at the same time, she was trapped in the cave by the old man's snake. It was Gon who rescued Pensy. But Pence couldn't make it to the next round because she didn't get 6 points. After the hunter exam, he became a member of Bakuer. And now, Pence, following Richard, has already scored 6 points. But still met the old man. Have to say this is the role of fate. Under Pensy's control, some bees flew towards the bush where the old man was. Both of them belong to the kind of people who control other creatures to fight. In a sense, it is similar. Developed Nen, and it is quite possible that it will also be an emitter. That is, to extend on one's own skills. For example, Bakuer, in the original book, learned Nen, which is to strengthen his bow and arrow and shoot 7-color arrows. Different arrows have different attributes and deal with different situations. From the perspective of Nin's characteristics, this is not a badly developed Nin. After all, Bakuer accepted the system professor of the Serious Hunter Association. It's just that Bakuer's own strength is too weak to be killed by a spider soldier. Not even the head of the division. Hiss! A venomous snake swooped down on Richard. Mouth open. 2 sharp fangs, with a little crystal. That's the venom of a viper. The old man stared intently. Bite it. But at this moment, Richard shot. Reach out and squeeze lightly. That is, he pinched an inch below the head of the poisonous snake. After that, push hard. Boom. The viper was crushed directly by Richard. Too weak. A snake of this level could not pose a threat to Richard at all. The old man's pupils shrank suddenly. It's actually blocked. Did you take precautions earlier? At this moment, a buzzing sound entered the ears of the old man. The old man raised his head subconsciously. Is to see. AB is flying towards the old man's location at a very fast speed. Pfft! Just stab the poison needle. Hiss! The severe pain made the old man take a deep breath. However, this is only the first one. Following this bee, there are more bees. The old man quickly ran out of the bushes. When he looked up, he saw that Peng Si was walking here. And beside Peng Si, there are many bees around. The old man's face sank. I didn't expect these bees to be manipulated by you. The old man thought it was an accident just now, and secretly said that he was unlucky, but now, the old man knew that he had already been discovered by the 2 people on the opposite side. Didn't Richard do it? Just let a little girl of you be my opponent? Pensy frowned. You think I'm not worthy of being your opponent? The old man glanced at Peng Si lightly. Richard, it's really embarrassing, but you, a little girl, don't get involved in this kind of battle. Let Richard come out. I want to fight Richard. My target is Richard. Peng Si's face became ugly. But soon, Pence laughed again. Why should I be angry with you? Even the strength of the opponent can't be properly evaluated. Just relying on appearance to judge, then it means you are a person, and that's it. If you don't do it, then I'll do it first. Pensy waved his hand. Next moment, countless bees flew out of Pensy's hat and swarmed towards the old man. Buzz. The sound of countless bees' wings vibrating sounded. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly. I gave you a chance. If you don't cherish it, then I have no choice but to be polite. How can a mere bee defeat my poisonous snake? A large number of poisonous snakes crawled out from the old man's side. Asterisk. Chapter 56. Richard sat by the fire and watched, with no intention of shooting. This kind of battle, in Richard's opinion, is a bit too pediatric. The fighting style of the 2 is very ordinary. Simple and straightforward. It is directly to use the creatures that you operate to rush, to reckless. On the old man's side, there are poisonous snakes defending and bees attacking. On Peng Si's side, bees are defending, and poisonous snakes are attacking. The 2 have maintained a delicate balance for the time being. Viper's advantage is size. The advantages of bees are their numbers and flexibility. However, Peng Si has an additional advantage, that is, Peng Si's own physical fitness is better than that of the old man. The old man is old. Before learning Nen, it has entered the aging stage. Such a person, even if he passed the hunter exam, presumably none of the hunter society will teach its Nen. Because of his upper limit, it is destined to be impossible to be too high. The professor gave him Nen, not to help him, but to harm him. With new power, he will definitely want to go to more dangerous areas. However, how can his growth space be compared with those of the young people? Not everyone is Netero. And Netero was only middle-aged when he set foot on this road. The middle-aged man is much stronger than this old man. One body after another fell. The viper fell to the ground and twitched, spitting out white foam from its mouth. The corpses of bees were crushed by venomous snakes. The expression of the old man gradually became serious. At first, the old man really looked down on Peng Si. In the previous exams, there was no sign of excellence. From the outside, she looks like a harmless little girl. But now, over time, the old man realized that Peng Si was far from what he imagined. Pensy is not weak, it can be seen from the strength of these bees alone. Controlling these bees is no less difficult than controlling venomous snakes yourself. Am I going to lose to this little girl? The old man felt the loss of his physical energy. After all, he is old. The other side is very young. It was true that Peng Si could not use the bees to break through the defense formed by the poisonous snake she controlled, but her own poisonous snake could not harm Peng Si either. This battle has turned into a protracted war. War of attrition. There is a high chance that you will lose. This discovery made the old man's face look ugly. Pfft! A bee broke through the defensive circle of the poisonous snake and came behind the old man. A poisonous needle pierced suddenly. The old man was in pain, and subconsciously reached out and patted it. But because of the old man's wave, a bigger loophole appeared in the viper's defense circle. More bees burrowed in. A series of attacks made the old man unable to stop it. You lose. Pence ordered the bees to stop. Leave, you are going to collect other people's number cards now, there is still a chance. There was a trace of loneliness on the old man's face. I lost. Pensy controls the bees to leave the old man. And at this time, sudden, the old man raised his head and looked at Peng Si, his eyes were full of resentment and unwillingness. How can I lose to a little girl in your hands? Even if I lose, I can't lose to a little girl. It's spread out, what's the point of my face? Absolutely not. The poisonous snake, which had already been withdrawn, suddenly attacked Peng Si again. A look of panic appeared in Peng Si's eyes. Peng Si did not expect this situation. Seeing these poisonous snakes, she was about to drown Peng Si. A figure appeared in front of Peng Si. It was Richard. Roll. A strong aura erupted from Richard's body. Immediately, all these poisonous snakes flew upside down. Like something hit hard. Broken bones. Some even exploded whole snakes. Pence. Richard's voice sounded. Peng Si looked in the direction of the old man. A wave of hands. Kill. Those bees rushed towards the old man. One after another. Countless poisonous needles pierced into the old man's body. Until the old man died. Pence ordered the bees to stop. The old man's body fell to the ground. Those poisonous snakes retreated one after another under Richard's momentum. The old man's corpse turned blue-black, stiff and cold at a speed visible to the naked eye. Peng Si felt a trace of fear in her heart. Without Richard, she must have died just now. Richard, thank you. Richard waved his hand. Thank you, you don't have to. We are teammates now. It's right to help you. But this matter, I hope, is a wake-up call for you. No matter what the situation is, don't let yourself stand under a dangerous wall, and don't entrust your safety to the character of the other party. Yes. Pensy nodded heavily. I see. I will never make such a mistake again in the future. Originally, Peng Si thought that the other party was too old and didn't want to be embarrassed. She defeated the other party and let the other party leave. I didn't expect this old man to do such a thing. The sky gradually became darker. Richard caught some fish and shrimp from the sea for dinner. This time Richard deliberately captured some more and practiced Nen control. Pence, on the other hand, was collecting bees. Use the bees you already have to attract bees from the forest. In the battle with the old man, Peng Si lost a lot of bees. A figure walked out of the woods. Richard looked over. Four eyes facing each other. Leorio subconsciously wanted to run. Asterisk. Chapter 57. Leorio, what a coincidence. Yeah, what a coincidence. Leorio stopped abruptly and smiled bitterly in his heart. He really didn't expect that he could meet Richard like this. Your target number plate, isn't it me and Peng Si? No, it's not. Leorio quickly denied it. But Richard has seen it. Leorio is lying. The old man's target just now was Richard, then, Leorio's target can only be Peng Si. Richard remembered that in the original book, it seemed to be the same. Your goal is Peng Si. If not, can you take a look at your target number? This. Leorio gave a wry smile, sighed, and said, yes, my target is Peng Si, but I can't beat you at all, I gave up. Pence looked at Leorio, a little wary. Richard said, we won't give you Pensy's number plate, but we have grilled a lot of fish. Would you like some? Leorio wanted to refuse. However, when I smelled the smell of grilled fish, I hesitated again. Then I'm welcome. Leorio was ultimately unable to hold on. Richard, Pence, have you collected the number plates you need? Almost. I really envy you. Leorio was eating the grilled fish, feeling less apprehensive about Richard, and said, I really want to pass this exam. After Richard, you and I talked about the hunter exam last time, a lot of research. Getting the hunter license really helped me a lot. However, losing to you, I am convinced. Richard glanced at Leorio. Leorio, you mean, are you ready to give up now? What else can I do? I'm not your opponent at all. But there is not only one way to pass this assessment. The examiner asks for 6 points, not necessarily to get the target number card. You can't get Pensie's number plate, but you can go and get someone else's number plate. As long as you get 3, don't you get 6 points? Leorio froze for a moment, then shook his head again. I can't do it, I can't get 1, let alone 3. Getting 3 is not necessarily less difficult than getting 1. Richard said, you can't get this because it's Pensie's number plate, but among the candidates on the island, the only ones stronger than me and Pensie's team are Hisoka and Gitaracker. Other than that, you can try. Also, you can also form a team. If you can't do it alone, you can have 2 people. Leorio's eyes lit up. Richard, what you said makes sense. Richard put down the grilled fish in his hand and said, it's getting late today. I'll allow you to rest for the night outside this cave. You can leave tomorrow morning. Thanks. Richard and Pence entered the cave. Leorio is a nice guy, so Richard is willing to help Leorio. Under such a critical situation, he still did not forget to help Richard get medicine. Richard would not forget this matter. Leorio glanced inside the cave. Suddenly realized that Richard doesn't seem to be that scary person. I am afraid of Richard because Richard's methods are too bizarre. But in fact, aside from being a little weirder, Richard didn't do anything overly. In contrast, Hisoka shot and attacked the examiner. And the criminals in the basement tower. Which isn't worse than Richard. Am I prejudiced against Richard because of my fear at the time? Leorio's eyes flickered. The next day, Leorio left early. When Richard came out of the cave, Leorio had disappeared. There are still 6 days left for the 4th exam. These 6 days, Leorio can't waste a day. Because he has to collect 3 full number cards, and he still has to make sure that his number cards are not robbed. It's not easy. The candidates in the entire examination room were divided into 3 groups. One has stayed out of the way. Ilmi, Richard, Pence. Another is trying to get points. The third is Hisoka. At this time Hisoka was playing a cat and mouse game with Gon. Hisoka's mentality, ordinary people can't capture. Richard understands it better because he knows the plot. But that's all. However, this may be a good thing for Gon. Mental stimulation and pressure from the outside world can make Gon grow faster. Above the sky, an examiner took out a telescope and looked down. The 2 of you had a great time. An examiner next to him said, no way, the strength gap between these candidates is too big, and the Kuer and Hanzo are already quite good in this batch of candidates. And that Gitaracker, after he got the target number plate, he disappeared, and we can't even find him. Richard looked up at the sky. The examiner's surveillance. However, this is normal. In name, the Hunter exam is responsible for life and death, but for candidates with real talent and potential, the Hunter Association still doesn't want to see them die. Especially Killua and Gon. Richard felt that Killua and Gon, the Hunter Association, the Zodiac family, and Kim Freaks must have done a lot of preparation. Asterisk. Chapter 58. Time passes little by little. Richard could feel that his mental energy had undergone a huge change compared to before taking the Hunter exam. The improvement of mental energy has a greater impact on the amount of chi than the improvement of physical fitness. The amount of my anger right now, among the Siranknen, can already be ranked in the forefront. Richard divided the strength of an into 4 parts. The first is the amount of gas. The second is the control of chi. The third is fighting skills. The fourth is hair. The amount of chi is undoubtedly important. Without chi, the means of the Nen cannot be used. This, Richard's current grade, is C+. And all Nen skills can be attributed to the control of chi. Including coagulation, jo, flow, firm, hard and so on. This, Richard's current grade, is C. Therefore, Richard needs to learn the high-level skills of the Nen and improve his control ability. Nobunaga is more or less round. Fighting skills, this is nothing to talk about. Most of the Nen people involved in combat when fighting, not limited to close combat. To put it bluntly, Chi is a weapon, and how to control this weapon is Nen's own business. Why some people can become strong immediately after learning Nen. Gon can defeat Gido soon after learning Nen. Not just because Gon is a genius. More because Gon is stronger than Gido in terms of fighting skills. This, Richard's current grade, is C+. Fourth, for an Nen player, it can be regarded as the most important, which is equivalent to the concept of a big move, but to bring out the power of this big move, the first three foundations are very important. Richard's two abilities. One is the Mad Sonata. One is the Picture Scroll Maze. According to Richard's understanding of the Nen of other people in the plot, Richard feels that in this respect, he can be regarded as a comprehensively. My grade is probably between B and B+. It mainly depends on the particularity of my abilities. This is the key to the Nen, who can fight across levels. Why is Kurapika so threatening to Phantom Troupe just after learning Nen? Even in a duel, killing Uvajin? It's because of Kurapika's hair that's strong. The release of Kurapika forcibly enhanced Kurapika's comprehensive strength. But in addition to these, there are intelligence, IQ, environment, etc. that determine the direction of a battle. The fighting outside continues. The leisure is still here. Across a forest, it seems like two worlds. 6 days have finally passed. It's time. Richard got up. Pence followed behind Richard. The sound of a horn spread throughout the island. The boat that brought the examinees back to the port. Congratulations. A staff member smiled. Thanks. Richard and Pence boarded the boat. One after another, someone came out of the forest. Richard looked in the direction of the forest. I don't know how many people will pass the fourth assessment this time. After all, there are two more, the original plot, and the people who are not in the finals. One Richard, one Pence. The third candidate, Gitaracker, IL Fan. Fourth, Hanzo. The fifth, Killua. Sixth, Hisoka. The seventh, Kurapika. All of the above are within Richard's expectations. Eighth, Leorio. Leorio was out of breath and was in a mess, but he smiled happily. He failed to get Pence's number plate, so Leorio had to snatch 3 number plates. This is no easy task. But Leorio did it. The ninth, Burst Library Children. Richard frowned. Richard had expected Hanzo to appear, after all, Hanzo's own strength was here. But the Burst Library can still come out. This was beyond Richard's expectations. What Bakuer lost was not just the number plate. During the battle with Richard, Bakuer was also injured. In this way, it's a Burst Library, isn't it as bad as I expected? But getting the Hunter license is not necessarily a good thing for the explosion. NGL, it will be a tragedy to explode Cure. But Richard didn't say much. The two did not know each other. Moreover, Richard took the number plate from Bakuer. The rules are in line with the rules, but it is impossible to say that Bakuer has no thoughts in his mind. Richard's reminder, not only will not be accepted by Bakuer, but may also think that Richard has ulterior motives. 10th, Gon. Just stepped on the point and walked out of the forest. It can be seen that Gon is in a low mood, especially when looking at Hisoka. However, after looking at Killua, Gon immediately forced a smile. Gon, how are you? I got 6 points. Great. Killua jumped for joy. On the other side, there were still some candidates standing, those who did not pass the examination. According to the rules, they will not be able to participate in the 5th assessment. When the ship reaches the port, they will leave. But they are much luckier than those candidates who died in the examination room. The candidates who passed the 4th assessment will be taken to the final exam by the Hunter Association. Richard looked away. Compared to the original, only one Baldlow is missing. Sudden. Richard had a bad hunch. Involuntarily, he looked at Ilmi. Asterisk. Chapter 59. According to the original book, Baldlow was to be killed by Killua. So who will Killua attack this time? Richard thought back. However, that's not necessarily going to happen. In any case, the 4th assessment has ended. 10 candidates qualified for the final round. The rest, when they arrived at the port, had already been sent away. The 10 finalists boarded the airship again. A voice sounded from the broadcast. Please hear the numbered candidates, go to the conference room, the president has something to ask you, thank you for your cooperation. The first to call the number was Hisoka. Leorio came over to Richard. Richard, while on the island, thank you. You're welcome. After all, you healed me at the time, Richard said. That's all in the past, and the watch you gave me is enough to pay. I pawned that watch, but I've used up the money. Richard, if you want to redeem the watch, I can give you the address. Richard shook his head. No, it's just an ordinary watch. As he was speaking, Richard's number was read out on the radio. I'm going to the conference room first. Richard walked towards the conference room and rammed his shoulders with Hisoka. Entering the conference room, there is only one person in it. Netero. A very ordinary look. From the outside, it doesn't look like this is a very strong old man at all. Like Hisoka said, it's full of flaws. However, this is full of flaws, and it is not that Netero is really weak. Rather, Netero presents whatever weakness it wants to present. It has reached a level similar to that of returning to basics. President. Richard, sit down. Thanks. Netero glanced at Richard. I want to ask you a few questions. First, why do you want to be a hunter? I want to get some high-level nin skills from the Hunter Association. So, do you want to improve your strength? Yes. Why? Because I have some things that I have to investigate, now my strength is not enough, I need stronger strength. I see. Netero nodded. Next question. Among these candidates, who do you care most about? Pence. Why? Because I plan to form a team, and Pensie's intelligence acquisition ability is what I like. Netero nodded again. Okay, third question. Among these candidates, who is the person you least want to fight against? Gitaracker. Why? Because I have no absolute certainty. What about Hisoka? I have other arrangements with Hisoka. Okay, I've finished asking my questions, let's go out first. Richard nodded and walked out of the conference room. A famous candidate entered the conference room one after another. It's about the finals. Netero has adopted a completely different assessment strategy than before. Almost all the candidates who passed in previous years were 1 or 2. And this time, because the quality of the candidates is too high, Netero's strategy is to exclude only one in the finals, so that the rest can pass the exam and get the hunter license. Richard, what was your answer? Pence and Gitaracker. Hisoka narrowed his eyes slightly. Not me. The battle between us is a matter of time, so it's not you. Is that so? Hisoka glanced aside. What do you think my answer is? Richard frowned. It should be me and Gon. In the original, Hisoka's answer was Killua and Gon. Killua's current strength is indeed stronger than Gon. And the talent is no weaker than Gon. But now, Richard's appearance will obviously break this judgment. No matter how strong Killua is, it will never be stronger than Richard. Sorry, you guessed wrong. Hisoka's expression didn't change. Richard smiled. In the passage, Peng Si walked out. Pence, what's your answer? Both are you. Richard nodded. This answer is mediocre. Soon, all 10 candidates answered. At this time, the airship also fell. Fell in front of a huge castle. Everyone, please come with me. A staff member leads the way. Enter the castle. It didn't stop until an indoor training ground. Netero came to the crowd. There were 2 rows of staff standing beside them. And previous examiners. Sats, Menchi, Bokara, Prison Tower Warden. Nit coughed. Everyone, I am the examiner of this hunter exam, the finals. Also the chief examiner of this hunter exam. First of all, congratulations to you, you have passed the previous assessment and came here. I won't say anything extra. Next, I start to announce the rules of the finals. A whiteboard was pushed up by the staff and covered with a curtain. Netero reached out and pulled the curtain. This is your battle list. Below are the names of 10 candidates. And above the candidates' names, there are some stepped lines. Leorio's face changed. Can only the first place get a hunter license? Kurapika shook her head. Not quite like it. Netero smiled. That's the rule I made. Follow the line above and fight. Losers, go to the next round. Asterisk. Chapter 60. Hearing this, everyone was taken aback. According to the common rules, the one who enters the next round should be the winner. But soon, Netero explained. In this assessment, as long as you win the next one, then you will pass the test. In other words, only one of the 10 of you present will fail this exam. And the other 9 can pass the assessment, get the hunter license, and become a real hunter. When these words fell, the expressions of all the candidates suddenly softened. 10 people choose 1. Well, most people are not eligible for that. It could only be one of Hisoka, Gitaraker, and Richard. But choose 9 out of 10. Most people have a chance. This is unreasonable and does not seem to be in line with the rules. But the Hunter Association is almost a single word for Netero. Therefore, even if other people have opinions, they can only keep it. Netero has the final say. In Netero's words, it's the rules. By the way, the rule is that when 2 people compete, they can use any means, but they can't hurt the other's life, and only when the other party voluntarily admits defeat can they win. Those who hurt people's lives will be disqualified. Hanzo raised his hand. What if the other party never admits defeat? Then just keep going. The rules just got weirder. However, several candidates were relieved because of this. Especially when looking at Hisoka. Richard does not agree with this rule very much. Because this rule comes out, it means that the real battle may not be carried out. This final is going to be a lot of fun. Not even as intense as the previous exam. Richard didn't know what Netero was thinking. But that's not a bad thing for Richard. Richard didn't want to show up here. On the contrary, it is easier to get the hunter license, which Richard is happy to see. All Richard wanted was Nan's high-level skills. Richard just thought the rule was weird. Okay, I've finished the rules, let's start the first game now. Hanzo, gone. The 2 came to the ring. A Hunter Society staff member acts as a referee. Richard didn't watch this game seriously. Because there is no need to see it. Hanzo is currently far stronger than Gon. In an instant, Gon was defeated. But when he has already lost, Gon just refuses to admit defeat. Because it is not allowed to kill the opponent in the competition, otherwise you will be disqualified. Gon has the guts to persevere. Very capricious. Rules are rules. So Hanzo chose to compromise. I surrender. Gon won, somewhat disgracefully. Richard noticed that at this time, Gon's face was not surprised, but stunned, and a hint of remorse. The situation in the original book has changed a lot, and Hanzo admits defeat more simply. Is it because you saw your opponent in the next match? Hanzo's next opponent will be Bakuer, and Bakuer who is still injured. Richard looked away. It's really self-willed, but to be remorseful, it shows that the nature is not too bad. At this time, Richard remembered another thing. In the original book, Gon and Killua, following Kate, went to NGL to conduct an investigation of Chimera Ants. Gon chose to stay when Kate had ordered Gon and Killua to escape. So much so that Kate wanted to protect Gon. Before formally fighting with Catwoman, her arm was broken by Catwoman. Later, after a night of fighting, Catwoman kills Kate. If it weren't for the arm that was broken in the first place, Kate might have escaped. These 2 things are more clearly remembered by Richard. About Gon. Gon's willfulness can be seen in 2 things. But Richard can understand. After all, Gon's age is here, he has not been taken care of by his parents since he was a child, and he also inherited the blood of Jin Freaks. Kim Freaks is also a very willful person. If you throw your child to your hometown, you don't care about anything. It would be good for such a person to be an ordinary friend. But not as close friends. Richard remembered that Molahu said something to Killua. At that time, Killua had not yet removed his body, and Ilmi had control over him. Killua doesn't like to face danger that is too risky. The enemy is too strong, Killua will choose to refuse to fight. That's what Molahu said to Killua. Sooner or later, you'll leave Gon and run away alone. But correspondingly, if Gon continues to be so self-willed, sooner or later, Gon will bring his friends to face death together and kill his friends. People have courage, of course, is valuable. However, self-knowledge is equally important. After Kate's incident, Gon should have grown a lot. If it doesn't change, it will indeed bring considerable trouble. Especially, the Dark Continent. The danger there is much higher than in the human world. The second game begins. Gon sat in the corner, feeling as though he had done something wrong. However, he believes that what he insists on is correct. Emotions are conflicting. Scene 2, Burns, Richard. Richard looked at Pence opposite. In a safe way, I admit defeat, so that you can be sure to pass the exam, and in the next battle, I can win a victory no matter what. I surrender. Richard raised his hand. This was expected by everyone. With Peng Si's strength, none of the candidates present was worse than Peng Si. Except for Leorio and Gon. But Gon has won. And Leorio and Peng Si did not meet for a short time. The winner, Pence. The referee looked down. The third scene, Hisoka, Kurapika. Leorio looked at Kurapika worriedly. In the fourth test, the ally that Leorio found was Kurapika. Without Kurapika, Leorio could not pass the fourth test. Leorio thanks Kurapika. And Hisoka. That is the existence that almost all students are afraid of. However, Leorio Bai was worried. Hisoka conceded. Once you play, you concede defeat. Only whispered next to Kurapika. Almost exactly the same as Richard conceded. Kureka, what did Hisoka tell you? Kurapika shook her head. Nothing. Kurapika came to the corner, lowered her head, seemed to be thinking about something, and couldn't help but look towards Hisoka. The finals turned out to be very ugly. It can even be considered ugly. In all three games, the obviously stronger side conceded defeat. This is the result of the rules set by Netero. The fourth match. Hanzo vs Cure. Hanzo wins. Hisoka vs Bakuer. Hisoka wins. There are a few things to see in these two games. But basically, Hanzo vs Cure was the climax of this final. The remaining people are Bakuer, Richard, Leorio, Killua, and Gitaraker. And at this time, Leorio put forward a suggestion to let Bakuer rest. Because Bakuer has already played 2 games in a row. Renly is not strong, but he doesn't want to fight unfairly. Richard, Gitaraker, stepped into the ring first. Asterisk. Chapter 61. Richard knew that Gitaraker was an IL fan. In addition to Richard, Hisoka also knew. But Killua didn't know. Part of the reason for IL's fans to take the Hunter exam this time is precisely because of Killua. Killua, who just ran away from home, is impossible for the Zodiac family to say that they are not worried at all. Moreover, Ilmi is also a strong brother-in-law. When Richard and Gitaraker stood in the ring, the atmosphere in the entire hall changed. Because Richard and Gitaraker are recognized by all candidates, one of the strongest 3 in this Hunter exam. The other is Hisoka. Hisoka watched with equal interest. Both of them were Hisoka's targets. The only expression that didn't change was Netero. Haven't started yet. The momentum of the two had already begun to collide. I don't think we need to fight. It doesn't matter who wins, the result is the same. Gitaraker glanced at Killua next to him. Really? Then, let me admit defeat. Gitaraker raised his hand. Hisoka looked disappointed. Both of them are his targets. If Richard and IL fans fight, Hisoka will be very happy and excited. Of course, this is in the case of life and death between the two. If life and death were to be divided, Hisoka hoped that the man in the battle would be him. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. But at the same time, like Hisoka, I was a little disappointed. But Netero set this rule, and it will lead to this result. The real powerhouse will have some estimates of his own strength and the strength of his opponents. Since there are 10 people, only one cannot pass. Well, just find that person. In most minds, there is an answer. Leorio, Burst Library. These 2 people are relatively weak among those who have not yet passed the assessment. Ilmi is a little different. Ilfin doesn't want Killua to follow the hunter's path. IL fans hope that Killua can become a traditional killer. Follow the tradition of the Zodiac family. I guessed before that Killua is a junior trained by Netero and Maha, but this matter, Year fans may not know about it, so Year fans' ideas must be their own ideas. However, there is also a possibility that Ilmi knew about this plan. What Ilmi is doing now is a test of Killua, an arrangement to promote Killua's growth. Richard stepped off the ring. Richard, that's great. Pensy hurried up to meet him. It's just what was expected. Richard waved his hand and brought Peng Si to the position against the wall. Next to it is Hisoka. Kurapika is comforting Gon. Gon's expression softened a little. but still a little worried about what happened just now. Kareka, did I do something wrong? Hearing this voice, Richard couldn't help but glance. Because of his appearance, the final list of Hunter's exam has changed. Hanzo didn't entangle with Gon for too long, and he didn't knock Gon out. Therefore, many things have changed. Gon didn't get hurt and was sent to the lounge, but stayed here. Richard didn't expect Gon to say such a thing at this time. A bit of a surprise. You will regret it, and you will progress. Kurapika was silent for a while and comforted. It's all here, and no one wants to admit defeat. No one wants to throw in the towel, and that must be true. But if you lose, you have to admit it. Richard recalled that in the original book, after Gon won in this way, he seemed to feel that his win was not very honorable at first, and refused to accept the hunter license. Only was persuaded by Sats. Third to last. Gitarakar, Killua. Killua did not recognize Gitarakar's identity, nor did he know of Nan's existence. Therefore, Killua is confident in herself. Don't even feel like I'm under Hisoka, Richard, Gitarakar. Step by step, walk towards Gitarakar. And at this time, Gitarakar pulled the needle from his face. Ilmi used these needles to change her appearance. Such a method was also used by Yamai in the Yukiksen incident. Disguised as Hisoka, Hisoka can find a chance to be alone with Crollo, and then have a showdown with Crollo. But because Crollo's thoughts were sealed, Hisoka's battle plan ended in failure. Until, Crollo wanted to seek revenge for Hisoka because of Yukeksen's affairs, so he agreed to Hisoka. After solving the seal on Neon in his body, the two fought in the sky arena. Phantom Troupe, vengeance will come. What Hisoka did to Phantom Troupe, is inexcusable. Of course, this revenge is also divided. Silva killed the 8th member of the Phantom Troupe. For this reason, Crollo and Silva had a fight. But there is no follow-up. Because the other party was the Zodiac family, Phantom Troupe stopped his continued revenge. Otherwise, the group waiting for the Phantom Troupe may be destroyed. Maha Zodiac shot, and no one in the brigade could stop him. A familiar breath emanated from the person on the opposite side, and Killua froze suddenly. The appearance of the Gitarakar changes at a rate visible to the naked eye. Big brother. Killua's pupil shrank. Killua, long time no see. Long time no see, big brother. Killua's whole person seems to have changed. Asterisk. Chapter 62. I heard from my mother that you ran away from home and slashed her, for which she shed tears. Mother, she is very touched. The young son has finally grown up. Very pleased. Mother is worried about you, so she entrusted me to see you. I didn't expect you to come to take the hunter exam. It just so happens that I need a hunter license for my next mission. Killua, then what's your reason for taking the hunter exam? Killua bowed her head. I'm just bored to have a look. I'm not interested in becoming a hunter. Well, that's great. Ilmi said, since that's the case, then I'll say it straight, you are not suitable to be a hunter, you are the son of the Zodiac family, you are only suitable to be a killer, this is your destiny. You understand this, right? Clear. You don't need feelings. You are just a puppet walking in the dark. Only the death of life can bring you meaning. This is the value of your life in the future. You understand this, right? Killua was silent for a long time, her eyes, involuntarily looking in Gon's direction, she gritted her teeth. Can't I have anything else besides this? Cannot. But I want to. What do you want? Friend. I want to be friends with Gon, Killua said. Friend. Ilmi looked at Gon in the corner and said, the killer doesn't need friends. It's superfluous and will only become a burden for the killer. If you insist, then I will kill him. A burst of killing intent was released from Ilmi's body. Extend to the corner of Gon. Hisoka's eyes narrowed slightly, and he moved calmly. Richard looked at Gon. The strong killing intent and malicious thoughts were in it. If it was replaced by other people, it would have been unbearable, but Gon was different. Gon would not measure the gap between himself and his opponent. Even in the face of Neferpitu, Gon chose to face it, not run away. Back then, Neferpitu could kill Gon with one blow. At this moment, in the face of Ilmi, Gon did not back down. Looking directly at Ilmi. Although Gon's body was already shaking involuntarily. Next to Leorio, Kurapika, looked extremely wary. And Hanzo, Bakur, and Peng Si were also affected by this maliciousness. People who don't know Nen, when faced with this kind of malicious thoughts, are like the whole person, red fruit, in the ice cellar, cold, dark, terrifying, and irresistible. Richard put his hand on Peng's shoulder. Thanks. Peng Si's face returned to normal. Richard looked at Killua. The current situation and the original plot have changed a lot. So, what's next? Ilmi glanced back at Killua. However, now I give you two options. The first one, admit that I don't have friends, and that I won't make friends in the future, and admit defeat, then I won't kill Gon, whether it's now or after the exam. Second, fight with me, as long as you win me, then I will not care about your business, and if you lose, then I will kill Gon immediately. Two choices, which one do you choose? Leorio forcibly calmed down. Is this guy crazy? Is he really Killua's brother? Why do you do this to your own brother? I just wanted to say, Killua's entire family is not normal, right? Why did Killua cut his mother, and her mother was moved? What kind of magical idea? Kurapika looked serious. Maybe, this is the killer family. Killua fell silent. A long time. Finally, Killua made a decision. I surrender. Ilmi smiled and said, yes, this is the right choice. You will not be my opponent, a killer. If you can't make a clear judgment on the strength of the enemy, you will be remiss. Also, killers don't need friends. When Ilmi said this, Richard couldn't help but look at Hisoka. In fact, Hisoka and Ilmi are totally friends. This sentence, said by Yi Irfan, is very double standard. It's been a long time since you've been out. Come home and take a look. Mother, she misses you very much. Yes. The referee announced the result. The winner, Il Fan. Next game, Leorio, against Cure. Leorio and Bakur walked to the ring. Leorio, you are not my opponent. Among the people present, only you and Peng Si are the weakest, but Peng Si has already passed the test, so the one who failed the test must be you. Bakur is very confident in this competition. Because Leorio's strength is indeed worse than other candidates. In the first exam, Leorio barely passed. Compared to others, Leorio's foundation is a lot worse. Although Leorio's progress is fast. But the foundation is here, no matter how fast Leorio progresses, he can't make great strides in a day. Moreover, almost all the candidates who can reach the finals can be regarded as geniuses. Leorio's talent is good, but the talent of other candidates is not too bad. Among the 10 people this time, there is no old, stagnant existence like Baldlo. Leorio snorted coldly. Don't talk so early, I too, came over one test at a time. I'm not as weak as I thought. Bring it on. Whoever loses and who wins, it's up to the real ability to decide. But at this moment, Killua's figure suddenly appeared behind Bakur. Richard looked at Ilmi subconsciously. Asterisk. Chapter 63. Pfft. A voice sounded. Bakugu's eyes suddenly widened. The same goes for Leorio on the opposite side. Killua withdrew his hand, which was full of blood. A gloomy aura wrapped around Killua's body. Killua walked to the door. Push away. Step out. Killua. Gon subconsciously wanted to catch up, but was stopped by the staff. Killua has been disqualified, and there are still further steps to complete, otherwise, you will not be able to really get the hunter license, please go back inside. This. Gon struggled. At this moment, Leorio's voice suddenly sounded. Come on someone, help me, save people. All eyes were on Leorio. Leorio took out his briefcase. There are no files in it. But medical drugs and appliances. Kurapika, Hanzo, hurried forward. No, no. Leorio was sweating profusely. The injury was so bad, there was so much blood loss. The heart is bruised. Broken blood vessels. Leorio looked up. Are there any people who can do medical treatment? Richard thinks that Bakur is pitiful. This person is neither good nor bad, just normal. But whether it is the original, or now, the results are not good. In the original book, it became food for ants. Neferpitou got the concept of Nen from Bakur's brain. And now, Bakur has suffered the fate of Baldlo. But better than Baldlo, Bakur didn't die right away. Compared to Baldlo, Bakur is a young man after all, and his vitality is stronger. In addition, the strength of Bakur is a little stronger than that of Baudrillard. That's it. Richard stepped forward. Let me do it. Hanzo and Kurapika move out of the way. Richard came across from Leorio. After that, look at the explosion library. Killua's hand, aimed at Bakur's heart, pierced from behind. However, I don't know why, there is a little deviation. Did not hit the heart. But the one next to it was badly damaged. A blood vessel was directly ruptured. Richard stretched out his hand and covered Bakur's wound. A mass of air condensed in Richard's hands. Richard used his own chi to change into the shape of a membrane, acting as a blood vessel. Leorio, do the surgery to connect the blood vessels. Yes. Leorio didn't know how Richard did it. At this time, Leorio was not in the mood to pay attention to this either. All the energy is concentrated on repairing the organs of the explosion. Time passed little by little. Tick. Leorio's sweat dripped onto the floor, and there was already a pool. Richard glanced at Leorio. If you're forming a team, it's actually quite good to bring a Leorio. Leorio's personality may be a little rough, but he will be very serious and meticulous when dealing with things that need to be serious. Also, there are not many Nin with healing abilities. The character is much better than Gon and Killua. Gon is sometimes too self-willed, even blindly confident, and Killua's words, until the problem of the needle of Ilmi is solved, Killua will be too stable, and he is too disrespectful to life. To put it simply, one is too reckless and the other is too wretched. If the personalities of the two are combined, it will look a lot more normal. However, that's probably why the two became good friends. Character flaws complement each other. Richard looked at Kurapika again. But Richard just flashed the idea and quickly gave up. The route Kurapika took was doomed, not suitable for a role in a team. Kurapika's Nin, for spiders. Even if Kurapika considered other possibilities, he left himself a way out. But after all, compared to others, there will be certain shortcomings. Also, Kurapika has his own things to do and Richard has his own things to do. A team, once there are two main lines, then there will be contradictions. In the case of Hanzo, it depends on what kind of abilities he develops in the future. Finally, Leorio stopped and leaned back, lying on the ground, panting heavily. Finally finished. Richard looked at Bakur. All wounds have been sutured. However, Bakur was still in a coma. Bakugo was seriously injured. Lose too much blood. Everything Leorio can do, has already been done. But whether Bakur can recover or not depends on the will of God. And, burst Kur's own will to survive. Several workers stepped forward and moved Bakur to a nearby room. We have contacted the hospital, and people from the hospital will pick up Kur soon, a staff member said. Hunter exam, at this point, it is over. Congratulations to the 8 of you, for passing the Hunter exam. Richard, Hisoka, Pensy, Ilmi, Hanzo, Gon, Leorio, Kurapika. Please follow me to the next conference room. We introduce Hunter's responsibilities, and rights. Please. A group of 8 people walked towards the conference room one after another. A question was thrown out. Namely whether Killua should really be disqualified. Killua shot Bakur, but Killua wasn't in the right state at the time, and Bakur didn't really die. This is the view of Leorio, Kurapika, Gon. Another point of view is, I can't tell if Killua is under the control of Ilmi, and, Killua shot Bakur with the idea of wanting to kill Bakur. Now Bakur is not dead, it's just Bakur's luck, and Leorio's rescue was timely. It's nothing to do with Killua. The purpose of Killua itself is clear, that is to kill. If you kill someone, you should be disqualified. Asterisk. Chapter 64. The Hunter exam is finally over. Richard walked out of the castle. A card appeared in Richard's hand. Exactly the Hunter license. With this thing, more than 90% of the countries in the world can enter directly without going through too many complicated procedures. In many cases, murder can also be exempted. IL fans take the Hunter exam, and a large part of the reason is because of this. And Hisoka, Richard doesn't know. This thing is not very important to Hisoka. Hisoka is not a murderer, there are only a few interested targets. In other words, even if it's not Hunter, but just an ordinary Nin who kills, it will be difficult for the outside world to pursue it. One is that it is not easy to obtain evidence. Another is that even if you know that the person has committed a crime, it is difficult to catch. Only a few hunters will pursue fugitives. Most hunters are doing things they are interested in. And ordinary people really have nothing to do with none. Richard glanced back. The question of whether Killua should be disqualified is up to Netero to make the final decision. Uphold the previous judgment of the Hunter Association. That is, Killua was disqualified for this test because of the attack on Cure. Richard, where are we going now? Pence stood next to Richard. Go to a nearby city first and take a rest. The figures of the two gradually disappeared from the range of the castle. The students left one after another. Hisoka is back in the Sky Arena. Hanzo also returned to the place where he practiced. Ilmi goes on her next mission. Bakura is lying in the hospital. As for when he can wake up, and whether he can wake up, it will be a problem. The Hunter Association is responsible for the medical expenses of the explosion. But that's not because the Hunter Association is responsible for it. By taking the Hunter exam, it has been determined that death is possible. Hunter Association do not need to be responsible. The reason why the Hunter Association treats Bakura is more because Bakura has this value. It can be seen from Netero's judgment on Bakura. Possibly, Bakura can't become a strong man, but as an ordinary hunter, he is qualified. Don't think it's nothing. For this world, the ordinary hunter is already the existence at the top of the pyramid. After all, the world's gangsters, the 10 old men, rely on the elites, but only myriad beasts. Gon, Leorio, Kurapika, are on their way to the Zodiac family. Gon wants to take Killua out of the Zodiac family. Richard estimates that it will be almost the same as the original plot. Richard and Pence arrive at the hotel. Get a suite. Okay, just a second. Soon, the lady at the front desk handed over a keycard. Your room number is on the keycard. Thanks. The two took the elevator and went upstairs. Enter the room. The entire Hunter exam lasted a long time. From the beginning to the first test center city, it takes almost 2 months. But the gains are also huge. Richard took out the Hunter license. The first thing is to get a Hunter license. With this thing, it will be convenient to do a lot of things. But it's just incidental. What I really want is Nan's high-level skills. Richard took out another note with a number on it. A senior hunter's number. Given by Netero. You want to learn the advanced skills of Nan, just make this call. This was Netero's original words at the time. I don't know who the owner of this number will be. Richard's first thought was Biscuit. Not the 12 Hunter Association, but Biscuit's strength is not weak, even strong. One punch was one of the 3 to defeat the exploding demon. Moreover, Biscuit is a orthodox learner at heart. Gon and Killua's future Nan high-level skills are taught by Biscuit. Gon and Killua's Nan initiation teacher, Yungu, was a disciple of Biscuit. Richard took out his mobile phone and dialed the number above. But there was a busy tone. No one picks up. Richard frowned. Isn't Netero giving the wrong number? However, it may also be that the other party is busy. Richard put down the note. Pensy probed in from the outside. Richard, do you want to take a shower? You wash first. Okay. This suite has 2 rooms but only 1 bathroom. Richard sat cross-legged on the ground, closed his eyes, and began to meditate for spiritual practice. In terms of physical training, Richard has reached a relatively high level. Basically the period of rapid improvement has passed. A single day's effort doesn't matter. Day after day perseverance to see results. 1 hour a day, and 2 hours of practice a day, the effect is not much different. Therefore, Richard devoted most of his time to spiritual practice. The speed of this improvement will be faster. Physical training, fixed at 1 hour a day. Richard, I'm done. Okay, I'll be right there. Richard opened the door and walked out. Then I saw Peng Si sitting on the sofa blowing her hair. Light green hair draped over her shoulders, and she changed into a set of pajamas. The whole person looks very petite. The orange hat was next to him. His face was a little red because he had just taken a shower. Richard looked away. Pence, what do you want for dinner? Just eat whatever you want, I don't have a good appetite. Richard, you decide. Okay, I'll ask the hotel to bring some up later. Richard went into the bathroom. In the bathtub, the water has been placed. Richard stretched out his finger and tried it out. The temperature is just right. Afterwards, Richard lay down in the bathtub. The warm water enveloped Richard's entire body. A faint aroma filled the bathroom. Richard's nose twitched. Apart from the shampoo and shower gel smell, there seems to be some other smell. Light, like honey. Thinking of this, Richard's expression became slightly subtle. Sudden. The phone rings. Richard brought the phone over. Hey. Asterisk. Chapter 65. You called me just now, what's the matter? I'm a candidate who passed the Hunter exam this year. Richard said, this number was given to me by President Netero. He said, let me call this number, and you will teach me the skills related to NN. Is the number given to you by the President? Well, I see. I'm sorry. I was reading a book just now and didn't hear the phone ringing. It's okay. Well, I'll give you an address. You come over by airship. After you arrive, I'll pick you up. By the way, what's your name? What does it look like? My name is Richard, otherwise, you can give me an email address here, and I will send the photo to your email. It is good. There is an address on the other side. Richard put down his phone. Soak for a while. After that, Richard got up, put on his pajamas, walked out of the bathroom, turned on the hotel's computer, took a photo of himself with his mobile phone, and sent it to his email address. Richard, whose number is it? The owner of the number that President Netero gave me. Oh. Richard sat across from Pence. Now that we are a team, you should know about this. I'll show you first. A malicious thought emanated from Richard's body. In an instant, Peng Xi's expression froze, her whole body froze, and she involuntarily shrank to the corner of the sofa. Cold, dark, scary. Peng Xi's body trembled involuntarily. Is it similar to when Ilfin played against Killua? Pence nodded. This thing is called Nian. Richard explained, Nian is essentially the life energy in the human body. It is very strong. By controlling this life energy, our strength will be greatly improved. Before, when Gon, Killua, Leorio, Kurapika and I passed the basement tower, I told them that they and I, Hisoka, Ilmi, are not from the same world, because of this. Those who have mastered Nin and those who have not mastered Nin are very different in strength. You can think of it as an extraordinary type of power. Pensy nodded. President Netero gave me this number just to find this person and learn Nin's high-level skills, which is exactly what I came for this Hunter exam. I hope you will learn Nin too, Pence. In this way, your strength can become stronger, and the strength of our team will also increase. Pensy hesitated. Can I learn? Certainly. Richard nodded and said, however, before learning Nin, if you improve your physique to a stronger level, it will be better for your future development. Pensy, your current physique is still a little worse. Richard paused. I'm going to design a physical training program for you. What do you think, Peng Si? Can. Peng Si just hesitated, then agreed. This is what Richard expected. Since he took the Hunter exam, Pensy must have come to become stronger, and the new thing Nin is very attractive to Pensy. I saw Ilmi's malicious thoughts first, and then I saw Richard's. Of course, Pence hoped that she could master this too. You can get stronger, why not? So when do we start? Let's wait until the city where the senior hunter is located, rest early today, and tomorrow we will buy airship tickets and go to the city where the senior hunter is located. It is good. Richard called the hotel's order number and ordered 2 noodles. To be honest, the noodles don't taste good. But during the Hunter exam, the candidates were poor and had little to eat. Even when Richard competed for the number plate, he had a very comfortable life compared to other candidates. But there are only fish and shrimp, no seasonings. I eat too much, and I don't think it's too delicious. In contrast, the noodles in the hotel seem pretty good. The next day, Richard and Pence packed up and headed to the airship plaza. According to the address provided by Senior Hunter, Richard and Pence need to go through a transfer. The transit city made Richard a little concerned. Friends Xin. This is a city where most of the world's gangsters control, otherwise the auction will not be held here. But ordinary people are indeed too weak in the face of Nin. So much so that in such a city with a strong gang background, Phantom Troupe broke into the auction site and snatched all the auction items. Although the leader of the Yin Beast, Xiao, moved things in advance. But the strength of the Phantom Troupe is on full display. And in the end, it still fell into the hands of Phantom Troupe. Richard sat by the window, looking out. The airship is getting farther and farther from the ground. Pence closed her eyes. AB quietly landed on Pence's shoulder. Once something unexpected happens, the bee will remind Peng Si. In addition, in the front and rear corners of the airship, there are Pence's bees. The matter of the airship last time made Peng Si a little concerned. Even with hindsight, it was a Hunter Society test. However, Peng Si's vigilance still increased. Richard didn't say much. This is a good thing. Asterisk. Chapter 66. Sudden. Richard opened his eyes. Pence. 33. Richard, what's wrong? There is something wrong with the situation. Richard looked at the corner of the airship and said, the person in the corner is a psychic. Moreover, there is a faint malice on his body. Peng Si's face changed. I don't know what his purpose is, let's not act rashly. Pensy, you control your bee, get a little closer to him, but don't be too deliberate, so as not to let him pay attention. Yes. This is an that Richard has never seen. However, the other party's breath is very strong. C grade. This has been very extraordinary. After all, even the rating of Yin Beast in Richard is only D level. The Yin Beast is already the world's gangster, the elite troops that the 10 old men rely on. AB landed on Peng Si's hand. Richard, the bee told me that this man has a spider tattoo on the palm of his right hand. 35 spider tattoo. Richard frowned. Combined with each other's image, a name entered Richard's mind. Face Shadow. The 4th member of the Phantom Troupe. Because he didn't like the brigade, he pretended to die and quit the brigade. The surface is killed by Hisoka. But in fact, Mian Ying just took this opportunity to escape. A strong nin. Relying on memory, you can make dolls. Traits. Puppets are embodied. At the beginning, everyone thought it was made from corpses, but it later proved not to be. If the eyes of the main body corresponding to the doll are captured and installed in the eye sockets of the doll, then the strength of the doll will be greatly improved. The number among spiders, isn't it 4? How do you know? Pence gave Richard a surprised look. This number, Peng Si was just about to say. I didn't expect Richard to say it first. Because I know who this person is. Richard looked away. The ability of face shadow is somewhat similar to Richard. But it's different. The same is the control puppet. Richard's puppet comes from the idea of death, and the puppet of the face is made by himself. Each has advantages and disadvantages. Richard's idea of death is relatively strong. As for the face shadow, you don't need to kill the other party, you can also make a puppet, as long as you have the memory of this person. This memory can be your own or someone else's. The dolls can then be made. Describe it simply. Richard's is difficult, but high quality. The shadow is, the difficulty is small, but the quality is poor. Who is the maliciousness of the face directed against? Richard looked around for a week, but couldn't see who was worthy of being watched by the shadows. Sudden. Richard thought of a possibility. Could it be me and Pence? Richard frowned. It's very possible. Face shadow needs a powerful puppet to improve his strength, so what kind of puppet will meet the requirements of face shadow? Hunter, obviously one of them. Especially the hunter who just passed the hunter exam. Generally speaking, such hunters are not very strong. But it meets the doll requirements of face shadow. It's easier to catch, and it can enhance your strength. Richard's eyes narrowed slightly. This face is not a real powerhouse. It's normal to choose to bully soft persimmons. Richard clearly remembers that when Nobunaga faced his former opponent, he looked down on him. After that, face shadow was defeated by Gon and others. Richard's eyes flickered. Richard, his target, is it us? Peng Si also has a certain understanding of Phantom Troupe. Anyone who wants to become a hunter has heard of this criminal group. Strong. Very vicious. It's very possible. But don't worry. Richard said, this person, I can deal with, and if he shoots, you can do what I tell you to do. 99 good. 55 AC level Nin, Richard's is a B level, 1 level higher than the other. Moreover, Richard knows the Nin of the face, but the face does not know of Richard. The tactic of catching the face of hunter who just passed the exam is correct. Unfortunately, he met Richard. At this time, the face seemed to realize that Richard and Pensy had found him. The candidates for this hunter exam are of good quality. One turned out to be a Nin. It's interesting to make a doll like this. A faint smile appeared on the corner of his face. The face felt the breath of Richard. However, the face does not think that Richard can pose a threat to him. One is Richard's age. The other is that Richard only went to take the Hunter exam this year, and he knew the intensity of the Hunter exam, so he decided that the candidates who took the Hunter exam would not be too strong. That's it. Since you have discovered it, let's start now. 35. A puppet appeared in front of the face. Next moment, a cloud of mist spewed out of the puppet's hand. Immediately, I saw that the nearby passengers closed their eyes one after another. Flowers 0. This fog has a strong hypnotic effect. This fog is not fatal. Peng Si took out a cloth, dipped it in water, and covered her mouth and nose. Richard, on the other hand, came to the passage. Not bad. A look of admiration appeared on his face. You've just passed the Hunter exam, you've already learned Nen, and your reading looks pretty good. Since that's the case, I'll accept it bluntly. Face stretched out his hand. Another puppet appeared. Don't resist, it's pointless. 5. Richard thought for a moment. A recorder appeared in his hand. Use Burrows, read the bullet. A thought bounced towards one of the shadow figures. Pfft. A small hole appeared in the doll. But for the puppet, it is not fatal, and it can only be regarded as a small injury, which does not affect the action at all. 0. Shadow frowned. I take back my compliment just now. Your anger is good, but your ability is quite poor. Are you joking with this level of narration? 35. Such an ability is a complete waste of your chi, waste. The face looked at Richard. I thought that you would become a capable person among my dolls, but now it seems that you can't. You are only qualified to be cannon fodder. I think too much. I was expecting too much. What good things can come out of the Hunter exam? However, I originally came to find cannon fodder this time. Let the speed lead to death. 9. Come on, kill him. The two dolls, under the control of the face, pounced on Richard. Richard smashed the recorder in his hand. Crack. 39. A puppet shattered directly. The overall grade of the face shadow is C grade. These dolls will only be under C. Another puppet's attack landed, but was blocked by Richard. Richard condensed chi on his arm. It was not Richard who was injured, but the doll itself. Richard's defense ability, after being strengthened by Black Aura, is comparable to Uvigen. These dolls can't hurt Richard at all. Face Shadow's eyes reappeared with a touch of appreciation. I didn't expect you to hide your strength. Disguised as a transmuter, what are you actually? Manipulator? Or enhancer? However, no matter what kind of you are, your destiny cannot be changed today. It is destined to be defeated by me and become my puppet. Lee. Chapter 67. Richard looked at the face shadow. You think you've won? Of course. 35. A smile appeared on his face, and he said, you just defeated two of my cannon fodder level puppets, so you don't think you have the strength to fight against me, right? Do you know who I am? Who? Face Shadow raised his right palm. Since you have become a hunter, then, you don't know what this tattoo represents, right? I know. Richard said, the Phantom Troupe, a notorious criminal organization. According to legend, the people in this organization are powerful, vicious, and unscrupulous. 99. But, you are an imposter. 35. Richard said that on purpose. Fake. The shadow's face sank. Richard nodded. The number on your palm is 4007, but according to what I know, in the Phantom Troupe, a number can only correspond to one person, but I have met the number 4 member of the Phantom Troupe. 5. He is also one of the candidates for this hunter exam. Face Shadow eyes narrowed slightly. Hisoka. Richard uttered the name. Compared to you, I think Hisoka is much stronger. 35. Then, who is the imposter is naturally clear. If there is no strong person, I will pretend to be a weak person. Moreover, during the hunter exam this time, I also encountered a counterfeit like you. Having a spider tattoo on his back, claiming to be a member of the Phantom Troupe, but in reality, just a scammer. This prisoner did not get a chance to appear in this world. With Richard's appearance, the first 3 games were all victories, and there was no need for the remaining 2 games to compete. Neither the purple-haired female prisoner nor the fraudster competed. But because he knew the original plot, Richard knew this person. Are you mocking me? The face of the face became ugly. You think I'm a scammer? What the hell is Hisoka? 5 Just a clown who was easily deceived by me. The face snorted coldly. I don't know what the Hisoka guy said to you, but I tell you, I am a member of the Phantom Troupe, and Hisoka, who killed me, got my number 5 but that's only on the surface. Actually, I took this opportunity to quit Phantom Troupe. What the hell is Crollo? 99 It was originally everyone's brigade, but he turned the brigade into his own, and everyone else became his subordinates. 99 I can't accept such a thing. Why? But what's even worse is that the other members of the regiment are on Crollo's side. 99 It's ridiculous. Someone would like to take the initiative to be a vassal. Then Hisoka wants to join the brigade, then, it's a good thing for me, I deliberately made a puppet, let this puppet be killed by Hisoka, and took this opportunity to quit the brigade. Or can Hisoka kill me? Just a clown. Pretend. I don't look down on such a person at all. Suddenly, Face Shadow felt something was wrong. No, why am I talking to you so much? Are you trying to procrastinate by provoking this topic? But, it doesn't make sense at all. The staff of the airship have all been replaced by dolls by me, and no one can help you. There was a cold look on his face. I don't know what you're talking about. But whatever it is, it can't be successful. Richard glanced out the window. To disappoint you, I have succeeded. What? A tremor came from under his feet, and his face looked out the window, only to find that the airship had landed before he knew it. Those several staff members were replaced with dolls by their faces. But just now, Richard has used the idea of death to deal with those dolls. Peng Si entered the control room and controlled the whereabouts of the airship. A picture scroll wrapped the control room, so that Mian Yingxia felt that the puppet was destroyed. The picture scroll of greed has the effect of isolating thoughts. Even the use of circles in the picture scroll maze by the Nen will be greatly limited. What's more, there is no such deep connection between the face and these ordinary dolls. The complexion changed. You let the airship land. Solved my puppet? How did you do it? 99 Richard smiled. How to do it, I can't tell you of course. If you don't say it, I will know, as long as I make you a puppet, I will know everything you have. The shadow looked outside. Don't you think that when the airship landed, you can escape from me? Do not. Richard shook his head and said, you misunderstood. I never thought of running away from the beginning to the end. I just didn't want to fight on the airship. 5 Come out with me. This place is too small to be used. Face Shadow raised his brows and looked at the sleeping passenger. Suddenly thought of a possibility. Shouldn't you be, in this case, you still want to protect the lives of these passengers? You have become a hunter, are you still so naive? Since the lives of these passengers are so important to you, why would I leave? 35 Stop, or I'll kill him. Face Shadow stabbed a passenger in the neck with a hand. But Richard didn't stop at all. Richard does not kill innocent people. However, he will not sacrifice himself for others. Are you retarded? To think that I would value the lives of these ordinary people more than my own? 35 No wonder Hisoka took your place. 35 You keep saying that you deceived Hisoka, but that's not the case at all, you just had to use a puppet to replace yourself when facing Hisoka. Otherwise, since you want to leave Phantom Troupe so much, why do you still have a spider tattoo on the palm of your right hand, even without removing the number on it? Is it difficult to remove this tattoo? Richard continued to walk out. 5.0 Besides Hisoka, I also know a member of your Phantom Troupe, Maggie. Judging from Maggie's ability, she is one of your brigade, responsible for support and assistance. 5 But even Maggie, in my opinion, is countless times stronger than you. 35 The face was angry. Bullshit. I can't be as good as that clown in Hisoka. It's impossible not to be as good as Maggie. How can a woman compare to me? Richard shook his head. You're such a piece of crap. 35 It turned out to be sexist. 99 As far as I know, there are several women who are stronger than you. If you still have a little courage, come out and fight me. Richard is telling the truth. Biscuit, as well as several female members of the Hunter 12, will be stronger than Mian Ying. Chapter 68. Face Shadow's hand fell. The passenger's neck was directly pierced by the shadow. A blood vessel ruptures. Red blood spurted out. The passenger twitched suddenly. Blood stained the surroundings red. Richard didn't stop. Where can I be threatened by face shadow because of this? After all, Richard was not one of these passengers. Second, Richard stayed, and it was a worse thing for these passengers. The aftermath of Richard's fight with Mian Ying could easily kill these ordinary people. Richard came to the open space outside. The airship landed in a forest. Next to it is a lake. There is only a small clearing on the edge of the lake. Richard stood still. Shadow's face sank. The situation exceeded the expectations of the face shadow. This time, the face just got the news that 2 new hunters who have just passed the hunter exam will appear. Face shadow is going to use these 2 new hunters to supplement his dolls. Too bad, the face can't be seen. And being able to pass the hunter exam proves that this person is at least above the standard. But the face did not expect that Richard's level is far more than 2 words above the level. What the face even more did not expect was that Richard knew Hisoka. 09 Thinking back to Hisoka, his face couldn't help gloomy. Face shadow didn't want to admit that he was inferior to Hisoka. But Mian Ying knew in his heart. He is not Hisoka's opponent. That guy is a pervert. Mian Ying didn't feel how good Hisoka's ability was, it was just normal. However, this man is too scary. Incredible. That brain is simply not the thinking of a normal person. Totally unpredictable. And his own attacks are often caught by Hisoka. In short, IQ crushing. I really can't solve that pervert of Hisoka, but can't you and I solve it? The face looked at Richard. At your age, is it comparable to Hisoka? It's just that I got a little bit of information from Hisoka. 39 Where did the confidence come from? Wait, that pervert, Hisoka, won't give my information to anyone. So, you are Hisoka's friend, right? No wonder. 35 The face snorted coldly. Then it's better, that guy Hisoka, I've wanted to kill him for a long time, but killing him is very difficult. It takes a long-term plan and a slow plan, then I'll kill you first. Kill your friend Hisoka. Peng Si didn't come out and stayed in the control room of the airship. This was arranged by Richard. Because, the next battle, it is Peng Si, who is not qualified to join in. The shadow came across Richard. One after another dolls appeared beside the face. Little devil, just let you see my true abilities. Don't be too surprised. To say that I'm not as good as Hisoka, not as good as Maggie. Now, I'll let you realize what real power is. 35 Richard looked at the face shadow, his expression calm. Then I'm really looking forward to it, come on, or I'll be disappointed. Richard's words made the face even more angry. Kill him. A dozen dolls all swarmed towards Richard. All the puppets aim at Richard's vital points. From all directions. These puppets are actually not weak. There is an air of thought. If it were an ordinary person, if a puppet broke into the crowd, it could cause hundreds of casualties in an instant. But Richard is no ordinary man. Richard's comprehensive strength has reached a B-level nin. It is 1 level higher than the face shadow. Richard held a recorder and walked continuously among the dolls. As soon as it fell, one of the dolls was bound to shatter. At this time, Richard's accumulated fighting experience came into play. In terms of strength, these dolls are not weak. But their fighting skills are not strong. So facing Richard, they couldn't capture Richard's trajectory. Just let Richard play with them. It was impossible to predict Richard's next move, but Richard could predict their actions. One and the other. More than a dozen dolls did not pose a threat to Richard. The facial expression became a little dignified. At such a young age, it was as if he had experienced countless battles. How can there be such a person? Could this guy be from our Meteor Street? The face was on Richard's body, as if he saw the shadow of the people in Meteor Street. Whether it is from Meteor Street or not, it has come to this point, this puppet, I have to decide. Shadow gritted his teeth. Don't be complacent. These are just appetizers. My really powerful doll, I haven't come out yet. A figure appeared beside the face. The body exudes a completely different atmosphere from other dolls. This doll was made by a powerful nin from Meteor Street, and I also robbed his eyes and installed it on my doll. The strength of the doll is not weaker than the nin itself. I almost gave my life to make this doll superior. Face Shadow gave an order. The doll charged towards Richard. Richard frowned slightly. This thought is different from other dolls. It's the elite of the shadow dolls. Richard glanced. This doll, unlike those dolls, seems to be able to use the body's Nen perfectly, in addition to its strength. This is the most vigilant. Nen, so weird. A burst of breath came over. Richard felt that the temperature of the air near him dropped suddenly. A layer of frost, condensed on the ground. A conjurer capable. The ability is frozen. Richard felt that his movements were gradually becoming sluggish because of the freezing effect. This ability is troublesome. As time goes on, my movements will become more and more sluggish. It's not the one-shot type. However, the effect is remarkable. The longer the time, the better the effect. Richard looked across. There are two solutions. First, break this doll. The second, pulling the puppet into the picture scroll maze. 35 This puppet is an autonomous puppet. Even if Richard plays the crazy Sonata, making the face go crazy, this puppet will not be affected, but will continue to attack Richard. The first one is not something that can be done in a short period of time. Then, you can only choose the second one. But in this case, I need to delay it a little longer. Richard looked to the ground. A hole in the ground appeared in Richard's sight. This is Richard's previous arrangement. Send the picture scroll to the ground first. After that, when he reached the foot of the face shadow, he suddenly broke out of the ground. Now because of the appearance of this doll, Richard needs to expand the scope of the picture scroll maze, which requires more time. The face saw the change in Richard's expression, and the corner of his mouth curved. Do you know how strong I am now? And said I'm not as good as Hisoka, not as good as Maggie? Now tell me, who is stronger? Richard shook his head. No, I still maintain the original. Judgment. Chapter 69. Up to now, are you still using your tongue? Then I will send you to death. 35 A dozen ordinary dolls appeared. Richard's figure, constantly dodging. Read the bomb. Strengthen tongue. Little by little, Richard was dragging his feet. Sudden. Boom. On the ground, a gap opened. Right next to the face. A picture scroll broke out. Time is up. Picture scroll maze. The shadow's attention was focused on Richard. And, on the recorder in Richard's hand. For the underground situation, there is no perception at all. Therefore, when the picture scroll broke through the ground, the face shadow did not have time to react. The long scroll formed a labyrinth, and the face, the puppet of the face, and Richard were all wrapped in it. What is this? His face changed. Richard's Nen, the strengths and weaknesses are clear. The advantage is that as soon as Richard's Nen starts to affect his opponent, then it is basically certain that Richard will win. No one can resist the effects of mental pollution. The state of the other party will get worse and worse at a faster and faster rate. Crazy Sonata is to make the other party become crazy and lose their sense of autonomy. The picture scroll of greed is to let the other party fall into the illusion of greed. The disadvantage is that it takes time. Whether it's a crazy Sonata or a labyrinth of greed, it takes a certain amount of time to pollute the other's spirit. The stronger the opponent is, the longer it will take. That's why Richard talks so much nonsense with Mian Ying. Secretly, Richard is arranging the picture of greed. But Richard didn't expect that Hisoka's name would be so stimulating to the face. So much so that there was no need for Richard to say more, and the face shadow took the initiative to cooperate. Maybe it was when Hisoka defeated the shadow, which caused a great psychological shadow on the shadow. Richard thinks it is very possible. Face shadow, strictly speaking, is not very strong. According to Richard's judgment, it is a C grade. And Hisoka, is a B grade. Coupled with Hisoka's character, he is very good at playing with people's hearts. I'm afraid that Face Shadow will be tortured by Hisoka before he loses. With the addition of Face Shadow, he has a very strong self-esteem. That's why Face Shadow cares so much about Hisoka. Because of the appearance of elite dolls, Richard spent a little more time. However, Richard has won this time, so the balance of victory has already been tilted in Richard's favor. In fact, even if Richard is not at the right time, Richard still has the advantage. The picture scroll of greed can not only attack, form a picture maze, but also defend. Facing the enemy, the high probability of winning is still Richard. It's just that Richard wanted a more relaxed way of using the picture scroll maze. As long as the maze appears, then, the face shadow will have no chance to turn around. What can I do for a mere painting? 9 A sharp blade appeared in Face Shadow's hand. Raising his hand, he stabbed at the scroll. But what surprised Mian Ying was that when the picture scroll was touched by the sharp blade, there was no sign of rupture at all. The toughness of the picture scroll exceeded Mian Ying's imagination. It's not an ordinary picture scroll, could it be that this guy materialized? Face Shadow was startled. A manipulator who likes to pretend to be an emitter. Because it's hard to tell the difference between the two. The props embodied by the manipulator are visible to the naked eye, and are almost no different from the real props. When Yuvajin and Karapika were fighting, he couldn't tell right away whether Karapika was a manipulator or an emitter. At the beginning, Face Shadow's judgment on Richard was transmuter. Later, because Richard shattered his doll with one blow, it was speculated that Richard might be an enhancer or a manipulator. When Face Shadow sent out an elite doll, Richard resisted it, and felt that Richard was more likely to be an enhancer. It was only now that the Face was determined that Richard was the manipulator. These mistakes in judgment also bought Richard a lot of time. And even now, Face Shadow's judgment is still wrong. Richard understands a bit why Hisoka is doing all those fancy magic tricks before the battle. Because it really works. Misleading information to the other party, so that the other party has a wrong judgment. Give yourself an advantage. It seems that I underestimated this guy, and he can actually materialize such a thing. However, if I can make this person into a puppet, then I will have 2 elite level puppets, and my strength will be greatly improved. Then, Hisoka, will be your death. The shame you gave me, I will never forget. 35 The Face snorted coldly. I don't believe that your paintings can last forever. It's not just me who attacked this painting, but also my puppet. You can't be so angry. But what Face Shadow didn't know was that he had a puppet. Richard has it too. Burroughs, Johnson, Calkin, Lizard, former examiner. These thoughts of death were all released by Richard. Compared with the elite doll of the Face Shadow, it is certainly not as good. But much stronger than those ordinary dolls. The figure of brothers walked out of the picture scroll. Came behind a puppet. Bomb. A bullet was fired at the doll. Crack. A hole appeared in the doll's body. But not fatal. Immediately, the doll turned his head and looked in the direction of Boris. And at this moment, Johnson appeared. A one-handed axe appeared in Johnson's hand. An axe fell heavily. Bang. Immediately, this puppet, in Johnson's axe, became 2 halves. The lizard ran straight towards a puppet. The powerful collision force made this puppet fall apart in an instant, turning into a pile of fragments. Calkin cooperated with the former examiner. The efficiency of the 2 is the lowest. When the 2 are still entangled with the first opponent doll, the combination of brothers and Johnson has solved the 2 dolls. And the lizard alone has solved 3 dolls. In a sense, the battle between Richard and Face Shadow can be seen as a battle between 2 puppet masters. However, in the picture scroll labyrinth, it is Richard's home field. In addition, apart from the elite doll of the Face Shadow, the remaining dolls of the Face Shadow are not as good as the thought of death controlled by Richard, and they are inferior in quality. But because of the existence of the picture scroll labyrinth, the elite dolls cannot support other dolls. The number of dolls in the shadows decreased one by one. Of Zhao, until, only the last one left. Burroughs, Calkin, Johnson, Lizard, former examiner. All came to the vicinity of this elite doll. The faces in the labyrinth, constantly walking through. Get out! Do you only dare to hide? 35 Face Shadow's mood became more and more irritable. Even though Face Shadow's attention was focused on finding Richard, but, inadvertently, Face Shadow would still look at the content on the scroll, and Face Shadow's consciousness had already begun to be affected. Hearing the voice of the face, Richard shook his head. I'm not that stupid. You are already in my picture scroll labyrinth. In other words, this battle, I have won 7. How could I voluntarily give up my advantage? Richard thought for a moment. However, this battle should be over soon. Then I will speed up the pace a little bit. A recorder appeared in Richard's hand. Richard put the recorder to his mouth. Play. Crazy Sonata. Chapter 70. A melodious voice came out. Shadow frowned. Where did the voice come from? 35 The Face Shadow only felt that his mood became more and more irritable. Involuntarily, the Face Shadow's footsteps became hurried. Boom. The face slammed into the corner of the scroll. As Richard played, he came to another battlefield in the labyrinth. The elite doll of the face. This puppet is very powerful. Before his death, I was afraid that he had reached the C rank. However, after being made into a puppet, the strength has declined a bit. In the original plot, Face Shadow made a Yuvajin puppet, but Nobunaga didn't like the puppet at all, and commented that the puppet was too far from the real Yuvajin. The doll's abilities, strengths, and weaknesses are equally obvious. 99 It will be very effective against evenly matched opponents. But in the face of opponents who are stronger than yourself, it is difficult to play a role. Through the power of freezing, slow the opponent's movements. 35 But it will take time. If the enemy's strength is stronger, it can completely smash this doll in a very short period of time. 35 But because it's a doll, I'm restrained with regard to my abilities. Whether it's a crazy sonata or a picture of greed, it can't pollute the spirit of a puppet. Because the doll has no spirit. If there are more dolls like this in the face, it is indeed a threat to me. But unfortunately, he only has one. 007 The thought of death controlled by Richard launched the final attack. Burroughs used the bullet to attract attention. Corjin uses a reinforced tongue to restrain one of the doll's legs. With the whip in his left hand, Johnson bound the other leg of the puppet, and the axe in his right hand slashed at the puppet. The former examiner came to the back of the doll. Gather the power of 4 people to control the doll. A layer of frost condensed on the body of Death thought. And at this moment, the lizard came to the front of the puppet. A burst of red surged on the lizard's body. Second form. The lizard condensed a lot of chi in its right hand, no, it should be said on the right claw. The whole paw has turned into color. A burst of extremely strong momentum erupted from the claws. The air around him seemed to be heavy. Richard spoke up. The dolls made by Face Shadow are divided into 2 states. One is the normal state. The other is that if the eyes of the doll body are captured, then the power of this doll will be closer to the body. As long as the eyes are removed, the strength of the doll will be great. The lizard's claws pierced the doll's eyes. Pft! Pierced directly. The 2 eyeballs were taken off by the lizard. Boom! A pinch, achva, burst. Immediately, the aura of the puppet dropped significantly. And the frost on Death's mind gradually faded away. Dolls without eyes and dolls with eyes are very different. Bang! 9 The lizard punched. A fist-sized hole appeared in the lower abdomen of the elite doll. Afterwards, Burroughs, Calkin, Johnson, and the former examiner all worked hard. Crack! Elite dolls were dismantled directly. Richard's eyes turned to the other side. Face Shadow's emotions became more and more irritable, looking for Richard, but couldn't find it. Looking for the exit, can't find it. Inadvertently glanced at the paintings on the scroll, and heard Richard's crazy sonata. Face Shadow's spirit and consciousness have reached a certain limit. Eyes are red. Breathing heavily. Damn it! Come out! Come out! The face growled. The face at this time has long lost its calmness. A long hair, became very messy. The whole person, as if he had been in some kind of chaotic prison for a few months, walked out. Richard's figure appeared in front of the face. The face stared at Richard sternly. Finally dare to come out? The little devil who only hides. Richard shook his head lightly. Hiding? No, I'm just using my abilities reasonably. 99 I have a brain. Unlike you, I just mention Hisoka's name and you get hysterical. 5 It just gave me time to prepare. I have been in touch with both Hisoka and Maggie. 99 I have to say, compared to them, you are really far behind. The face roared suddenly. Bullshit. Nonsense. You say yes, but one thing is clear now, that is, I am much stronger than you, and you will die in my hands soon. Impossible. The shadows rushed towards Richard. Richard took out his recorder and played it. The tipping point is here. The spirit of the face was shattered. Loss of self-consciousness. A punch hit him hard in the face. Crack. The sound of broken bones sounded. Blood splattered. Mine, all mine. Immediately afterwards, a frenzied expression appeared on Mian Ying's face. The gravel and Lois on the ground were piled into a pile by the shadows. It's all mine. Don't rob me of anyone. The face glared at his right hand fiercely. The other hand squeezed it hard. Crack. Broken hand bone. Richard looked at the face shadow across a layer of picture scroll. Face shadow's spirit has completely collapsed. This is Richard's Nen. As long as you give Richard time, no matter how strong Richard can contaminate his spirit, make him look like a ghost or a ghost. When Mian Ying gets emotional when he hears the word Hisoka, it is already doomed to Mian Ying will lose. And when the face shadow was trapped in the picture scroll maze, the probability of the face shadow defeat has become 100%. Kill him. Johnson's figure appeared behind the face. The face did not notice it at all. An axe appeared in Johnson's hand. An axe fell, facing the shadow's neck. The entanglement of the face was shattered in one fell swoop. Even if the level of the face is higher than that of Johnson. However, the face shadow has no sense of defense. The chi on the face of the shadow's neck is only a thin layer, and this layer can't stop Johnson's axe at all. The entire neck is broken. Blood spurted out. Face shadow's head fell to the ground and rolled on the ground. Sudden. A strong thought of death was born on face shadow's corpse. You can actually kill me? 99 How dare you kill me? Richard, I want you to die. The face's death thought roared, caught Richard's position, and rushed towards Richard. Ignore the thought of death next to Richard. But at this time, a burst of strong attraction appeared from the scroll. Face shadow's thought of death, under the influence of this attraction, involuntarily flew to the picture scroll. Until it was sucked into it by the picture scroll. Richard thought for a moment. Immediately, the recorder, the picture scroll, and the thought of death all disappeared. Only the tattered puppets remained. And the corpse of the face. Pence can come out now. It is good. Peng Si got out of the airship with some worry, and when she saw that Richard was safe and sound, she breathed a sigh of relief. Richard, it's really good that you're okay. Pensy was really worried. However, Peng Si knew even more that with her own strength, she couldn't help at all. Forcing it out would only drag Richard down, so she stayed in the airship control room until she heard Richard's voice. I said don't worry. Richard paused. Pensy, please call the airship company's emergency number, and let someone handle the airship matter, and I will report this matter to the Hunter Association. It is good. The two took out their phones. The signal here is not very good, but it is barely enough to make a call. Chapter 71. Soon, the staff of the airship company came over. Richard showed off his hunter license. After that, he pointed to the corpse of Face Shadow. This man, the criminal who attacked the airship, has been killed by me. He has a spider tattoo on his hand and may have something to do with Phantom Troupe. The expression of the airship staff immediately became vigilant. Phantom Troupe. Okay, we got it, sir, thank you this time, or our passengers could have suffered more serious injuries. You're welcome, I am one of the passengers myself. 9 Richard glanced back. I hope you can keep this matter a secret and not reveal my existence. Rest assured, we will never say more. Richard nodded. Okay, I'll leave it to you here, I still have something to do, I'll leave first. Goodbye sir. Richard took Pence to a nearby town. Because the face shadow is solved, and the face shadow is the identity of the wanted criminal, Richard will get a certain reward after this matter is sorted out. This reward will be issued directly by the Hunter Association. Richard didn't want to have too much contact with these ordinary people, and didn't even say his own name. I rented a car from the town and arrived at Yokiksen before dark. A bustling city. It is no different from the city where the Sky Arena is located. One prospered because of gangsters, and the other prospered because of fighters. Find something to eat at a restaurant first, then go to the tour group. It is good. The two came to a Western restaurant with a lot of families. Steak, barbecue, no alcohol. Richard. Peng Si hesitated for a moment, then said, tonight, you can start my physical training. I want to meet the requirements of learning Nen as soon as possible. I had no use facing that person before. The shadow thing, to Richard, is nothing. Because Richard killed a lot of Nen. Moreover, Richard has an accurate judgment on his own strength and the strength of Face Shadow. During the battle with Face Shadow, except for the appearance of the elite doll, which surprised Richard a little, everything else was within Richard's plan. Misleading the shadow with information and delaying time. The layout of the picture scroll labyrinth is carried out in secret. When the picture scroll maze is successfully arranged, it means that Richard has won the battle. And even if the picture scroll labyrinth failed, the face was aware of it. Richard face to face, still has the advantage. See and gas volume. CS Nen trick. C and physique. A-level Nen. Even if Crollo, Richard wouldn't be too afraid, let alone defeating Crollo, but in Crollo's hands it's perfectly fine to protect himself, let alone just a mere shadow. But for Pence, it's different. Face shadow caused great pressure to Peng Si. Pence had never faced such a crisis. The Hunter exam, the previous levels, all tested the candidate's instinctive endurance, physical strength, courage, will, etc. However, in the fourth test that really required battle, Peng Si basically did not contribute much. Faced with a snake handler. But those who control snakes will not read. In the subsequent finals, Pence also never really collided with Inan. Even if Ilmi showed malicious intent. But that was for Killua. What Peng Si felt was just a little aftermath. The appearance of the shadow made Peng Si feel nervous. I want to hurry up and improve my strength. This thing can't be rushed. Richard shook his head and said, I know about the face and shadow, which is exciting to you, but tomorrow we will take the airship to the city of that senior hunter, and we will be there the day after tomorrow. If you are in poor condition because of physical training, and if something happens on the airship, then isn't this putting the cart before the horse? Pensy froze. I know, I'm too impatient. It's normal, don't worry about it. Richard said, when we get to that senior hunter's city, you'll be able to learn and very soon, you're just a little bit worse now, not much worse. Peng Si's true strength was the level of the fourth examination room. Compared with the explosion library, it is only one line behind. Moreover, Peng Si is positioned as an intelligence officer, which can further lower the standard. Gon and Killua are raised in such a way that they can maximize their potential. But not for everyone. After coming out of the dining room, the two entered the hotel and opened a suite, 2 bedrooms, and a living room. After taking a bath, Richard went back to his room. Lock the door. Picture of greed. A picture scroll appeared in front of Richard. Several figures floated out from the scroll. Johnson, lizard, former examiner, face. Richard moved. Johnson, lizard, and the former examiner all disappeared. Only the face remains. I remember that the purpose of Face Shadow joining the brigade is to make dolls of the brigade. As long as there are memories of the members of the brigade, Face Shadow can make dolls. But before, Face Shadow didn't take out the brigade's dolls. 35 On the one hand, it's because Face Shadow didn't get the eyes of the brigade members, and the brigade dolls are not strong. Richard thought back to the dolls at the time. Except for the Conjurer's elite doll, the other dolls are not very strong. On the other hand, Face Shadow doesn't want to reveal the existence of those dolls. Once the information is leaked, it will inevitably face the brigade's pursuit, and after falling into the picture scroll maze, it is too late to release those dolls. 00 Richard's eyes flickered. I don't know if I can use the Shadow's death thought to use this ability. 35 The strength of the dolls produced is a bit poor, but it may still be able to play a role at some point. Richard looked at the face. Using my memory to make dolls, Hanzo. 35 Next moment. A group of thoughts condensed in front of the face. Little by little, slowly, changing shape. Finally, a human figure appeared in Richard's sight. Same as Hanzo. Even Richard remembers the same clothes. But no eyes meet the master. Hanzo knelt down on one knee to face Shadow. Richard took a serious look. The appearance is almost identical, and it is absolutely loyal to the Shadow. Richard asked a few questions. It does have the memory of the ontology. However, the memory is not complete, only a few parts, more like, are supplemented by my bystander memory. Also, if you can get all the memories of the main body, it would be too perverted. Then next, it's time to test the strength. Richard gave orders to the Hanzo doll. Attack me. After a few rounds, Richard stopped. Too weak. It's weaker than I expected. Richard looked at the Hanzo doll that he had torn down. Probably only the real Hanzo, 1/10 of his strength. I don't know how much stronger a puppet with eyes can be. 35 A&D. Chapter 72. Richard recalled. There are 3 states of the Shadow doll. The first is the eyeless state. This Richard has been tested and is 1/10 the power of the ontology. The second is the false eye state. This fake eye means that this puppet captures the eyes of other people, not the eyes of the main body. The third is the real eye state. That is, this doll has captured the eyes of the main body. Richard went out. You can find some gang members and experiment midnight. Richard was walking down the street, and when he sensed a line of sight behind him, he turned around and entered the alley. A young man took out a dagger and charged directly behind Richard. Richard's face sank. Don't say a word, just kill yourself. These people are really vicious. 95 Then, taking them as experimental subjects, I have no psychological burden. 35 Richard turned around. 007 No thought is used. Richard wanted a real fight and judged the strength of these people. That way there is a comparison. Okay. A powerful aura erupted from Richard's body. Suddenly, the figures of several young people froze. Row, spare, life. 35 A recorder appeared in Richard's hand. Richard transferred the shadow's thoughts of death to the recorder. The face shadow is a puppet master, placed in the picture scroll. Its effect is not as good as that of the lizard, because Richard transferred the face shadow to the recorder, and the name of the face shadow, disguised as the ability of the recorder. Aiming the recorder at a young man. A special breath entered the young man's body and read the young man's deepest memory. Afterwards, Richard took the recorder back. A dark shadow appeared. A little change, slowly, into a human shape. Puppet. Richard controlled the doll and captured the eyes of another young man. Attack me. The puppet attacked Richard. Soon, Richard's test results came out. The false eye state is about 3/10 of the body. Richard took off the doll's eyes again and let the doll come to the main body. Take the eyes. This time, the doll captured the eyes of the main body, so it entered the state of real eyes. Attack me. After a while, the doll turned into pieces. The real eye state is about 6/10 of the main body. The test was done, and Richard left the alley. The next day, when a passerby was passing by the alley, his eyes suddenly widened. Several corpses lay on the ground. The blood has dried up and turned black. Some flies lay on the corpse. Dead. At this time, Richard and Peng Si had already taken the airship and left Yokiksen. Pence didn't notice that Richard went out in the middle of the night last night. Sitting in a chair, yawning. 2 dark circles are a little thick. Last night, Peng Si didn't sleep well, because she was thinking about the face, which made Peng Si still care about it after all. Even if Richard had comforted Pence. The 2 cities are far apart, and even by airship, it takes a whole day. Richard sat in his seat and began to practice Nen. Spiritual practice is not suitable, it is easily influenced, and, moreover, it may affect other people. Richard is practicing the Nen technique. The kind that Biscuit takes, turning chi into words. Start with simple numbers. 0, 1, 2. From 0 to 9, and again from 9 to 0, until Richard felt a little tired and stopped. Guest, what do you need? At lunchtime, the 2 came to the restaurant. 1 set A, 1 set C. Okay, please wait. 99 Richard and Pence sat in the corner. Sudden. A loud noise sounded. Richard couldn't help but look over. A passenger, for some unknown reason, had a fierce argument with the cook. It looks like a fight could happen at any time. Several airship staff rushed over and pulled the 2 away. I saw it with my own eyes, you spit into the soup. The words fell, and all the passengers immediately looked over. Richard glanced at the soup on the table. Peng Si, have you had the soup? Not yet. Peng Si's hand had already reached out to the bowl of soup, but when she heard the sound, she stopped abruptly. Richard, too, hasn't had a drink yet. Richard doesn't like to drink soup in the middle of a meal, either before or after the main meal. But that didn't mean that Richard didn't care about the chef spitting into the soup. Soup did just that. What about other dishes? Richard calmly came to the cook. Take a look. After that, take away a chef who is familiar with the chef in question. 0. Using face shadows, make puppets. A massive breath invaded the chef's body. Richard let the chef go. Come to the corner. A doll identical to the chef in question appeared. This is one of the usages of puppets. Part of the memory of the ontology can be obtained. Although the memory obtained will not be too many, the ones that are near can be obtained. At that time, did you spit into the soup? Number 35 Richard breathed a sigh of relief. It would be disgusting if the chef was really that careless. Now it seems that it is the passenger who is talking nonsense. Richard returned to the scene. This chef did not spit into the soup, I can testify. You are an ordinary passenger. The passenger looked at Richard disapprovingly. You said you didn't see it, didn't you look at him all the time? Richard looked at the passenger. You said you saw it, then, can you describe the scene at that time? 99 Why not? 99 The passengers started to make up their minds. But soon, it was punctured. It's easy to make up a lie. However, it is difficult to fabricate a lie without loopholes. There are so many people here that it is easy to find flaws. In the face of numerous evidence and witnesses, the passenger could only admit that he was framed. And the reason, just because, the passenger felt that the food the other party gave him was too small. But Richard took a look. Not much. Richard shook 5.0's head and returned to the table. It's just that when something like this happened, Richard has no appetite. That's why, most people, don't like talking about gross things at the dinner table. Except for those heavy flavors. The night passed quickly. The airship has landed. Richard had already said hello to the senior hunter in advance. The other party said that they would be picked up at the airship square. Peng Si, take the exit this way. 35 It is good. A sign entered Richard's sight, with Richard's name on it. The one holding the sign was a girl who looked like a girl. Short curly orange hair. Wearing bunny ears on the head. Small in stature, he is on a par with Peng Si. Hi, I'm Richard and this is Pens. The girl showed a smile. Hello, I'm Bjorn. Chapter 73. This name, Richard has an impression. Hunter Association, one of the 12 earthly branches. Mao Rabbit. I like to eat candy. An ancient book hunter. Hunter belonging to the intelligence and research type, not the combat faction. However, being able to become the 12th Hunter Association will not be too bad in terms of combat. Richard didn't expect Netero to let Bjorn teach him. Come with me, my car is parked here. Good. 99 Richard and Pence followed behind Bjorn. In addition to the bunny ear decoration, Richard even saw a rabbit tail decoration behind Payan, which made Richard's mouth twitch. These 12 hunters, in order to better fit the name, are really hard enough. However, not everyone is like that. Paris Stone, Kim Freaks, and later Leorio, Karapika, who joined the Hunter Society, did not get in the car. Richard noticed suddenly. Payan's mood seemed to suddenly become excited when he got into the driver's seat. Richard suddenly had a bad premonition. Sit tight. Bjorn fell with a thud. Immediately, the roar of the engine was heard. Gone. The body jolted violently. Richard and Pence were just sitting down. If it wasn't for Richard and Pence still having a bit of strength, they might have been thrown out of the window. Bjorn looked excited. Richard really didn't expect it. One of the 12 members of the Dignified Hunter Association, Mautu, looks like a petite girl, but is so interested in racing. And more importantly, the driving skills are not very good. Several times. Richard saw that, if it wasn't for Pyorn's use of Nan, forcibly interfering, he might have collided. This car will not sit in the future. Richard made a decision. All the way. Finally, the car stopped at the gate of a small manor. Richard is not surprised. One of the 12 hunter associations, among the hunters, is already a top-level existence, and there is definitely no shortage of money. Come in. Richard nodded, got out of the car, and was in a normal state. But Peng Si was different, her face was pale. Sorry, I drove a little faster just now. 35 Seeing Peng Si's face, Payan said a little embarrassedly, I am a person, after touching the steering wheel with both hands, it is difficult to control, sorry. 39 It's okay, we're all okay. Payan walked in with the two of them. There are many people in the manor, some of them are servants of the manor, and some of them may be members of Pyorn's team. A mature hunter will have his own team. Gold Freaks. Kate. And many more. The 12 hunter teams can be regarded as Netero's team. It's just that the team rarely gets together to work together. Therefore, the 12 hunter teams will each have their own small teams. A woman stood at the door, similar to Payan, but she looked much more stable, and her body exuded an aura that no strangers could enter. This is my sister, Kaylin. 99 Hello Senior. Richard glanced at each other. This Kaylin's age, looks noticeably older than Bjorn. Payan, on the other hand, calls Kaylin his sister. So this proves that Bjorn's age is not what it seems. Richard couldn't help thinking of Biscuit. Bjorn, probably in a similar situation to Biscuit. Involuntarily, Richard's eyes on Bjorn changed. This is Richard, and Pence, the new hunter who just passed the hunter exam this year. Bjorn said, Ellen, you go get them a room. 35-1. Richard asked subconsciously. Bjorn's eyes turned. Aren't you a couple? I was in the car just now, but I saw your hands tightly clasped together. 5 Not yet. Peng Si lowered her head and did not speak, her face was already red. Kaelin didn't understand what was going on. Sister, are you racing again? It's just driving a little faster. How can it be considered a drag racing? The driver's business, it doesn't count. Richard noticed that Bjorn seemed to be afraid of his sister. Okay, I promise you, next time you don't drive so fast. Payan looked at Kaelin a little unhappily. Go get a room for Richard and Pence. Kaelin nodded, turning to Richard and Pence. You two come with me. Bjorn's house was large, with 3 floors. Kaelin took Richard and Pence to the 2nd floor. Just stay in these 2 rooms, 35 bathrooms and toilets are in the room. If you need anything, you can tell me anytime. Richard pushed open the door. Senior, thank you. 35 You're welcome. Kaelin paused and said, I'll go downstairs first. Okay. Richard looked away. This person, Kaelin, looks very cold, but when I really get in touch, her personality is still very good. It may be that Bjorn focused all his skills on reading and ancient books. Life skills, I don't know anything about it. So much of life is taken care of by my sister, Kaelin. 99-6 In this way, it is possible to explain the relationship between Payan and Kaelin. 99 Richard put down his luggage, entered the bathroom, rinsed, changed a set of clothes, and came out. Peng Si still hasn't come out. Girls bathing is always more troublesome. Richard went downstairs first. Payan sat on the sofa, and when he saw Richard, he couldn't help beckoning. Richard sat across from Bjorn. Richard, you want to learn Nan's advanced skills, don't you? Yes. Then let me see your thoughts first. Is it entangling or refining? Show all 4 majors. 99 Richard nodded. First start with entanglement, then refinement, and then absolute, and condensate. As for the words, Richard didn't show it. Neither the Sonata of Madness nor the picture scroll of Greed are suitable for display. My hair is a bit peculiar and not suitable for display. Bjorn nodded. It's okay, that's enough. It can be seen from your entanglement, refining, smashing, and condensing that you still attach great importance to the basic skills of Nan, which, Zhao, is very good, because learning advanced Nan skills is a must prepared. I will arrange a systematic training for you first, and after you complete this training, I will start teaching you high-level skills. Richard nodded. It is good. Bjorn handed over a book. The above are some of my study notes, you may use them. Thank you 7 years. You're welcome, since the president asked me to teach you, then I must teach you well. At this time, Peng Si came down from the upstairs, her eyes were obviously a little nervous, and it was better to see Richard. Come to Richard and sit down. Bjorn looked at Pence. Pence, don't you know Nan? Won't. Pence glanced at Richard and said, Richard said that my physique is not strong enough, so I should do physical training first, and then learn Nan after reaching the standard. Well, Richard is right, this would be better. Do you want me to help you develop a physical training plan? Chapter 74. Then trouble the seniors. This is what Richard said. Richard has prepared a physical training program for Pence, but Richard is not a professional after all, and Bjorn will obviously have more experience. There are even professional teams. No trouble. Bjorn stood up. Let's go to the training ground now, I'll take a look at your situation and make a plan for you. Going out, along a slate-paved path, Bjorn brought Richard and Pence to the rear of the manor, where a training ground surrounded by barbed wire appeared in the sight of the 3 of them. This is my training ground. Bjorn opened the door. Pence, come here. 35 Pence glanced at Richard. Richard nodded. Pence went to Bjorn. Do some preparatory activities first, and then test your strength, speed, reflexes, and finally test your physical fitness. Yes. Over there, Bjorn's test on Pence began, and Richard took out the notebook that Bjorn had just given. After a while, Pence's test was over. I will give you a plan tomorrow, and you will follow the plan and come to the training ground for training. 99 Yes, thank you senior. You're welcome. Bjorn waved his hand and walked towards Richard. Richard, let's 007s try it out. Actual combat? 35 That's right. Bjorn nodded. You have a real fight with me, so that I can know a little more about your situation. Want to use hair? Number 35 Richard nodded and came across to Payan. Pence left some. Pence has not yet learned Tunan, even if it is just the aftermath of the battle between Richard and Payan, Pence cannot bear it. Start? Both of them were wrapped with chi at the same time. Nan, even if they didn't make it, are countless times stronger than ordinary people. A wrap is equivalent to making the Nan wear armor. And it's armor that's tougher than steel. But it doesn't affect movement like steel armor. Coupled with the words, the Nan are stronger than ordinary people, and there will only be more boom. The two fists collided. Richard felt the powerful force that bounced back. This surprised Richard. The opponent is petite, but his strength is not weak at all. But after thinking about it, Richard was relieved. The age of the other party is not what it looks like at all, this is a character similar to Biscuit. Bjorn's eyes lit up slightly. The strength is good. Continue. Bjorn increased his attack speed a little. Richard was in Bjorn, and Richard was doing the evaluation at the same time that Bjorn was evaluating Richard. Regarding the control of chi, the other party is stronger than himself. Fighting skills, the opponent is also stronger than himself. In terms of strength, the opponent is still stronger than himself. However, in terms of defensive ability, he will be stronger. It's because I absorbed the black aura from the monster's corpse last time. Even if it's a Biranknan, the defense is stronger than mine, not much. Richard recalled something. That is, in the Hunter election chapter, Hisoka once conducted an assessment of the 12 Hunter Association. Hisoka scored 95 points against Ilfin. Bjorn's score is only 77 points. From this point of view, Payan seems to be weaker than Ilmi. But Richard could feel it right now, Bjorn, not weak. At least not 20 points worse than Ilmi. Richard hadn't seen Bjorn's hair. However, for the control of chi, Bjorn has already surpassed the vast majority of people. And Netero had Bjorn teach Richard the advanced skills of Nen. Then Bjorn certainly will. Plus, the time for Payan to learn to read is here. Hisoka's score, first of all, this is just Hisoka's idea. Hisoka has not had close contact with Payan, or even seen Payan make a shot. 35 Pina-en's own temperament is indeed not a fighting type. But like Biscuit. Biscuit's usual state, Achfa, is not a fighting type either. 35 Second, Hisoka's score is not necessarily based on the opponent's strength, because Hisoka's interest is not here. Hisoka cares about the fun of the battle. Yuvajan, Phaeton, Liza, etc. have the strength, but Hisoka is not interested at all. Thirdly, Hisoka's judgment is not necessarily accurate. Just like when I was in the Sky Arena, Hisoka had no interest in fighting for me, and only after seeing the picture of my greed, did he become interested in fighting. Fourth, that is Hisoka has never stated his benchmark score. In Hisoka's heart, how much will he be? Hisoka never said that. Preliminary judgment, Bjorn is at least a B grade. But I don't know what Bjorn's second form will look like. Bjorn stopped. Richard caught his breath. Both just clicked and stopped. I have basically understood your situation. Bjorn looked at Richard. Nan has a good grasp of the basics. 99 Excellent physique. In terms of fighting skills, it's not bad. After a pause, Payan said, in the next week, I will continue to practice combat with you. If I don't have time, I will let Kalen practice with you. 35 Let's get here first today. 99 The three returned to the house. By the way, what do you want for lunch? We can do whatever we want. Richard and Pence looked alike. Then I'll decide. Senior decide. 35 On the table, Richard found that the number of carrots on the table was a bit too much. Richard gave Bjorn a casual glance. Did Payan completely put himself in the role of a rabbit? However, Richard didn't mind. There is nothing wrong with eating more carrots. The next day, training officially started. Peng Si was doing physical training, with a person beside him, using training props. Richard is fighting against Bjorn, and Bjorn points out Richard's inadequacies while fighting Richard. It's been like this all week. In the middle, Bjorn had gone out on a business trip and replaced Kalen. From the looks of it, Kalen's breath was stronger than Payan's. However, after the real fight, you will find that Kalen's actual strength is weaker than that of Bjorn. This immediately reinforced Richard's opinion on the Hisoka score. Hisoka is not a god. How could he accurately judge the strength of an nin just by looking at it? Most nin will hide their true strength. Hisoka's score can only be used as a reference, and it is still a small reference. 35 week passed. Back to the training ground again. Bjorn looked at Richard. The first phase of training is complete. Now I teach you your first high-level nin technique. Week. Chapter 75. Bjorn handed over a stick. The so-called Jo is to extend one's chi from the body, not only to wrap the body, but also to extend it to the things in his hands. Like this stick. It's just an ordinary wooden stick. Bjorn came to a stone. However, after wrapping it with gas, the stick will become extremely tough. Bjorn lifted the stick and stabbed at the stone. Crack. Stab directly into it. Richard, try it. Richard nodded. Payan guided by the side. Use condensate first and observe the condition of the chi in your hand. Afterwards, imagine that you treat the stick as a part of your body, and control your chi to extend and wrap around the stick. 35 It's hard. 35 After all, something like chi is produced by the body itself. For other things, there will be strangeness. However, at this time, Richard's anger, already successful, wrapped the stick up. Bjorn's eyes widened. Richard, did you succeed? Richard looked at the stick in his hand. This seems to be easier than I imagined. But Richard soon understood. The first one is related to one's own ability, the medium of one's ability, one is the recorder, the other is the picture scroll, in a sense, both are equivalent to the extension of chi. Second, before, I had already practiced the control of chi. It's been since the hunter exam. Use gas to heat and bake food. Control gas changes into numbers. It seems. 35 Richard took the stick and stabbed the stone. Crack. Stones were pierced like tofu. Bjorn's eyes lit up. Richard, you are a genius. Payan recalled the scene where he was studying at the time. At that time, I was studying for a week, but it took a whole day, which was already more than a lot of people. I didn't expect Richard, you just listened to me once and learned it right away. Richard smiled. Maybe it's because I have practiced chi control before. Even so, you are still a genius. 35 Payan paused and said, since you have learned Joe's skills, then the rest is just practice, you have to smash all the stones in the corner. In that case, with regard to Joe's practice, you are finished. Richard nodded. Bjorn walked over to pens. Richard picked up the stick. Weak. A burst of air was wrapped around the wooden stick, which was not very stable. After all, Richard had only just learned this technique, and he was not even familiar with it. The first step is taken, then the next step is just a matter of practice and time. 5 Richard looked at the stone in front of him. Crack. Crack. 35 stone after stone shattered. Sudden. Richard thought about it. Breaking a stone is actually not very difficult. Why don't I further exercise my control of chi during this process? I can totally sculpt with these stones. As soon as Richard thought about it, he immediately acted. The first time, it failed. The second time, it failed. But over time, Richard gradually figured out the skills. Moreover, Richard felt that his mastery of Jo was faster than simply knocking stones. Do hard exercises and you will progress faster. 3 days later, Richard finally made his first successful sculpture. Is a puppy. Not lifelike, but the basic shape is fully visible. That's not enough. Richard looked to the side. A piece of paper entered Richard's sight. A stick is a hard thing after all. And if I could use weeks, attached to the paper, wouldn't it be more difficult? Is the effect of practice better? Richard thought about it and did it. Because of Joe's effect, the paper immediately became sharp. Puppy sculptures are becoming more and more real. Bjorn looked over. The situation exceeded Payan's expectations. Bjorn originally thought that Richard was still hammering stones, but unexpectedly, Richard had already started to play with sculpture. Good idea. A flash of admiration flashed in Payan's eyes. Not because Richard used Jo to act on paper. This is not difficult. The key is that Richard uses this paper to make sculptures. And the sculptures made are very realistic. I'm more interested in art for flowers. Richard smiled. Own Tunin. A crazy sonata that is music. The other is the picture of greed, which is painting. Both are related to art. Being able to make such a sculpture, about Joe, Richard, you have almost mastered it, let me teach you the next technique. Ken. Richard used condensation right away. Bjorn said, the so-called firmness is to use a larger amount of chi in a short period of time to wrap oneself. Tangling and refining are required, and they are used at the same time. 39 Especially on physical exertion. Richard nodded. This is equivalent to the burst mode, which improves your explosive power in a short period of time, and after the burst is over, you will enter a period of weakness, which is equivalent to overdrawing your power 500. If you can maintain persistence for an hour, then you are considered qualified. Bjorn said. Richard nodded. Yes, senior. There is no tricky way to practice hard, you can only practice, keep practicing. It's similar to physical training. Only one is the physical strength of the squeeze. The other is the squeezed gas. But chi comes from physical and mental energy. Learning to be strong is easy. It's hard to master it. It takes time, and the time you can practice in a day is limited. Forcibly overdrafting is harmful to the body. In his spare time, Bjorn taught Richard another technique. Hidden. Absolutely high-level skills. In the case of making it difficult for the other party to notice, use the hair. In other words, use the hair while you are using it. The other party can't feel your anger and naturally has no defense. And this time, your hair, suddenly attacked each other. Then, the other party will suffer your attack without any defense. Once hit, unimaginable. By the way, you can also practice the circle technique synchronously. 99 Similar to Jian, this is also a derivative of entanglement and refining. Be self-centered and diffuse the chi out. As long as it is within this range, it can be perceived. Richard begins with simultaneous practice of 3 high-level techniques. And at this time, a letter was sent to Payan's estate. Bjorn's face darkened. In trouble. And. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.